Chapter 119. Do you have any strange habits? _1 Within the nimble gown pavilion. Second Miss Lu Miaohuan, holding a deep blue dress, prepared to pay. Lu Miaohuan, I already reserved that dress. Could you pick another one? Just then, a fair-skinned young lady around 18 or 19, with a petite figure, pressed her palm on the table and spoke indifferently. Zhang Yongshan, you say you reserved it and that means it's reserved? Did you pay for it? Second Miss Lu Miaohuan immediately frowned, her expression cold as ice, and spoke in a hostile tone. She then turned to the shopkeeper and asked, Shopkeeper, tell me, did she pay a deposit for this dress? The shopkeeper, clearly intimidated by the question, didn't want to offend either side. Humph, how many spirit stones? They'll pay you now. The young lady in the yellow dress let out a light snort. Seeing this, Lu Miaohuan immediately knew the other party hadn't paid a deposit. She couldn't help but sneer derisively. Miss Zhang, you said you'd reserved it. How come you haven't even paid a deposit? Did you reserve it with just your eyes? Lu Miaohuan, I haven't paid yet, and neither have you? I've reserved this dress, so it naturally belongs to me. The young lady in the yellow dress retorted defiantly. You haven't paid a deposit, and you call that reserved? According to Miss Zhang, does that mean if you just lay eyes on something, it's reserved? Then, in the Nine Dragons market, no one else needs to buy anything. Before purchasing anything, they should first check whether Miss Zhang has reserved it. Lu Miaohuan wore an expression of cold, noble beauty, looking down on others with a side eye, and spoke contemptuously, dripping with mockery. I've never said such a thing, Lu Miaohuan. Don't twist my words. I've told you. I have my eyes on this dress. I've reserved it, so I've decided to buy it today. The young lady in the yellow dress raised her voice, speaking coldly as well. There was already a conflict between her and Lu Miaohuan, and they did not get along. Now, not only were her close girlfriends nearby, but the shop was full of people watching them. At this point, it was no longer just about a dress, but also about face. There was no way she could back down. Ladies, we will have new stock of this dress in 3 days. Why don't one of you wait? The shop is willing to offer a 20% discount at that time. The shopkeeper, faced with this scene, felt somewhat overwhelmed and spoke in a humble tone. However, neither of the ladies paid him any attention. For both women, it was no longer just about a dress at this time. Zhang Yongshan, I really can't understand. What exactly are you fighting me over? Lu Miaohuan glanced at the young lady in the yellow dress before her lips curled into a sneer, puffing up her impressive chest with utter disdain in her eyes as she said, Can you even wear this dress if you buy it? Don't you see yourself? Flat in the front and flat in the back, just like a board. Whoosh! As soon as she said this, the other people in the shop gasped. They felt that, for a woman, Lu Miaohuan's words were just too harsh, too damaging. Lu Miaohuan, you're going too far. Upon hearing these words, Zhang Yongshan was trembling with rage, her voice becoming shrill. Although petite and cute in stature, she was just starting to develop nicely. But compared to Lu Miaohuan, she suddenly seemed insignificant. Moreover, which female could remain calm and composed in the face of such humiliation? Too far? I'm just telling it like it is. Isn't there a mirror in this shop? Go take a look for yourself and you'll understand. Lu Miaohuan watched the young lady in the yellow dress' annoyed expression, laughed lightly with contempt filling her voice. Seeming to think her mockery wasn't sufficient, Lu Miaohuan, with her long legs, took a dress for a girl of about 10 from a rack nearby and said to the young lady in the yellow dress, Zhang Yongshan, I think this suits you quite well. Why don't you try it on? If you can't afford it, don't just reserve it with your eyes. Consider it a gift from me. Lu Miaohuan was already tall, and with her slim high-heeled shoes, she stood a full head and more above the young lady in the yellow dress. At this moment, she looked down upon her from her lofty height, speaking coldly and mockingly, pushing her derision to the extreme. Under such provocation from Lu Miaohuan, the young lady in the yellow dress anger flared up. Unable to contain her humiliation and rage, she snapped. Her voice rose into a scream. Lu Miaohuan, I'm going to rip your mouth apart. In a state of extreme anger, people are capable of anything. Normally, Zhang Yongshan also had the temperament of a pampered young mistress, used to being coaxed and spoiled. Now, not only personally attacked but publicly humiliated, she completely lost her composure and raised her hand to strike Lu Miaohuan. Lu Miaohuan caught Zhang Yongshan's palm in a swift motion and flung it away, saying, "Zhang Yongshan, stop making a spectacle of yourself. I don't have time for your nonsense. Furthermore, your figure hasn't developed, just like a child's, and your fists are as soft as a child's. Go back and drink some milk from your mother to grow some body and strength." Whoosh, as these words came out, everyone in the store and the onlookers couldn't help but gasp in astonishment, marveling at the venom of the Lu family's young Mississippi Lu Chongqing, who happened to be passing by the entrance, overheard Lu Miaohuan's words and his lips twitched. He suddenly felt that the younger Miss Prior treatment of himself, merely snorting at him with a disdainful face, was indeed quite generous and merciful. Otherwise, with such a biting tongue, he would have struggled not to retaliate. "Ah, Lu Miaohuan, I'm going to kill you." At that moment, Zhang Yongshan, her eyes red with fury and spiritual power surging within her, let out a high-pitched scream. A fireball appeared in her hand, which she thrust towards Lu Miaohuan. Seeing this, the onlookers in the middle of the marketplace couldn't help but cry out in shock, some even screaming. Chapter 120. Do you have any strange habits? Not only is fighting forbidden in the Nine Dragons market, but at such a close distance, casting a spell leaves no time for a reaction. If Lu Miaohuan hadn't been wearing a magic artifact for protection, she might not have died from the fireball, but she would have been seriously injured. Not good. Lu Chongqing, who had been watching the excitement like everyone else, was shocked at the scene unfolding before him. He hadn't expected the girl in the yellow skirt to actually make a move, let alone use a spell. He also realized that if Lu Miaohuan hadn't had a magic artifact to protect her, there would have been trouble. In an instant, he stepped forward, and bolstered by the green wind boots, his body turned into a blur, appearing in front of Lu Miaohuan, with his green robe billowing, displaying a body-protecting technique. The fireball hit Lu Changsheng's chest but was blocked by the protective spell on his robe. Lu Miaohuan was also stunned for a moment, not expecting Zhang Yongshan to actually attempt to kill her, and she was surprised by Lu Changsheng's intervention. But in the next moment, she looked at the girl in the yellow skirt with a cold expression and said, "Zhang Yongshan, you dare to attempt murder?" As soon as she finished speaking, Lu Miaohuan's hand erupted with flames, and she slapped toward Zhang Yongshan. However, a ding from Zhang Yongshan's earring produced a faint glow, extinguishing the flames in Lu Miaohuan's hand, turning it into a crisp-sounding slap on her face. Lu Chongqing was somewhat taken aback by this. It appeared the girl in the yellow skirt had the temperament of a spoilt young lady, acting without considering the consequences. But this second miss wasn't any better off, as the two were evenly matched in their recklessness. Lu Miaohuan, I'm going to kill you. Kill you. Zhang Yongshan was humiliated and enraged by the slap, her voice becoming sharp and almost hysterical as she fumbled in her storage bag for a talisman to activate. Damn it! Seeing the talisman, Lu Chongqing immediately recognized it as a superior-grade talisman. He knew that the children of cultivation families always had some life-saving methods when out and about. If the two were to continue, the situation would escalate. Acting quickly with a swift move, he snatched the talisman from her hand and said, "Miss, calm down, please calm down. Lu Chongqing, step aside. I want to see if she has the ability to kill me." Although Lu Miaohuan didn't understand how Lu Chongqing had appeared, she was equally angry, with two talismans appearing in her hand, ready to retaliate. "Shan Shan, sister, let it go, let it go." At this time, two of Zhang Yongshan's close friends stepped forward to mediate. They hadn't expected a minor issue to lead to such a confrontation between Zhang Yongshan and Lu Miaohuan. They couldn't just sit by and watch the situation escalate further. That would not only draw the attention of the Nine Dragons Marketplace's enforcers. If one of them got hurt, It would involve the families behind them, the Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain and the Zheng family of Wugong Ridge. Second miss. Let it go, please. Seeing people persuading them, Lu Chongqing also promptly urged Lu Miaohuan to stop. He wouldn't have gotten involved if he hadn't seen the other party make a move, fearing that Lu Miaohuan might get into trouble. Now that he was involved, he couldn't just watch the two of them continue to quarrel and sought to defuse the situation. Humph! At his words, Lu Miaohuan snorted softly, putting away the talismans in her hands. She may have been impulsive, but she was not foolish and knew continuing the argument would make things difficult to resolve. Miss, let's stop here, please. I apologize on behalf of the 2nd Mississippi. If we continue, the enforcers will be here soon. Although your families have some influence, you were the one who struck first, and it won't look good if things get out of hand. Lu Chongqing, seeing Zhang Yangshan's eyes red with rage, returned the talisman to her with a soft tone. Although he thought her attempt to kill was a serious problem. Such matters, if left to escalate further, wouldn't do either party any good. Eventually, one side had to back down and offer a way out. Otherwise, there would be no end to it. Lu Chongqing. I did no wrong, why apologize to her? Lu Miaohuan was not pleased when Lu Chongqing apologized on her behalf to Zhang Yongshan. My lady, please just do me a favor and keep quiet. Lu Chongqing immediately said to Lu Miaohuan upon seeing Zhang Yangshan's anger flaring up again. Humph! Lu Miaohuan, you just wait for this. Zhang Yongshan regained her composure, aware of her impulsivity, took the talisman back from Lu Chongqing, and coldly said, looking at Lu Miaohuan with reddened eyes. She was about to leave, then paused, turned back, and added, Lu Chongqing, right? They'll remember you too. Lu Chongqing was somewhat speechless at this. Always amicable, he never offended anyone, and he hadn't expected to be remembered over such an incident. Who's afraid? Lu Miaohuan was about to retort, not willing to yield, when Lu Chongqing, seeing where this was headed, quickly covered her mouth to stop her. Allowing Lu Miaohuan to retort would probably lead to Zhang Yongshan doing the same, and the argument would become never-ending. At this moment, Lu Chongqing thought to himself that it was a miracle these young ladies had managed to live this long without someone killing them over their attitudes. Lu Miaohuan felt the warmth of Lu Chongqing's palm on her mouth and was momentarily startled. She had never been so close to a man before, and Lu Chongqing's actions made her nervous and flustered. Hastily removing his hand from her mouth, her face flushed with a hint of embarrassment, she said, Lu Chongqing, what are you doing? Lu Chongqing also felt the moisture of her lips against his palm. Realizing his behavior was a bit overboard and somewhat rude, he immediately showed a hint of apology and said, Sorry. I acted hastily in a moment of urgency. Please forgive me. 2nd Mississippi. Chapter 121. Do you have any strange habits? Humph. Whose side are you on to actually help outsiders bully me? Lu Miaohuan's rosy lips pursed slightly as she spoke in annoyance. 2nd Miss, it's best to forgive and forget. Continuing this fuss isn't good for you, so let's just let it be. Lu Chongqing spoke in a gentle voice. Enough already. You're about the same age as me, yet you talk like you're my father, all long-winded. Lu Miaohuan bit her lip and said impatiently. Then, she put down the gown in her hands, not caring for it any longer, and strode out of the shop with long, determined steps. Truly has the temper of a young lady. Lu Chongqing watched Lu Miaohuan's retreating graceful figure, shaking his head and feeling as if Head asked for the annoyance himself. But in that situation, he couldn't just watch Lu Miaohuan get hit by the fireball. After all, he was protected by 4 magic artifacts and was unafraid of such ordinary spells. And it was unknown whether Lu Miaohuan had any protective magic artifacts on her. Though it was highly likely she had them, what if she didn't? Lu Chongqing gave the shopkeeper a slight bow and then left the shop too. Stepping out of the shop, he saw Lu Miaohuan standing on the side, waiting for him with an aloof and noble air. Lu Chongqing, what are you doing here? Lu Miaohuan asked as soon as Lu Chongqing appeared. I just happened to be passing by, and when I heard you were arguing with someone, I took a longer look. Lu Chongqing replied offhandedly. Hearing this, Lu Miaohuan, remembering her recent disdainful demeanor being witnessed by Lu Chongqing, felt somewhat embarrassed. She then placed her hands behind her back and gently swayed her body, whispering in a low voice, "Thanks for just now." She was aware that if the situation had really escalated, it would have been difficult to settle things without either side giving in. And she felt somewhat touched by Lu Chongqing appearing to shield her from the fireball technique. Although she did have a protective artifact, the sudden appearance of Lu Chongqing, standing tall in front of her, stirred some emotions within her. Lu Chongqing raised an eyebrow upon hearing this. He hadn't expected the second miss to actually thank someone to thank him. He moved a bit closer and teased, "What was that, second miss? Your voice was so soft. I didn't hear clearly." "Humph. If you didn't hear it, forget it." Lu Miaohuan huffed and quickly walked away. She wasn't someone who easily thanked others. But considering how she'd never shown Lu Chongqing a friendly face before, and how Head still stood in front of her in a dangerous moment, and even apologized to Zhang Yongshan on her behalf, she felt that saying thanks wasn't too much. Seeing this, Lu Chongqing knew that the second miss thanking him must have taken some courage. He couldn't help but smile, catching up with her and saying, I heard it. I just thought I might have heard wrong. I wanted to confirm it, but if you're going to say thanks, shouldn't you show a little more gratitude?" "What do you want?" Lu Miaohuan asked, her face cool and dignified. "It's nothing much. Just improve your attitude a bit and call me brother as a sign of thanks," Lu Chongqing said jokingly. Lu Miaohuan was stunned by his words. She bit her lips slightly, her clear eyes showing surprise. A delicate blush spread over her exquisite, cold features, like that of a bashful young girl. She shot Lu Chongqing a glance and uttered 3 words, "In your dreams." Then, those long legs wrapped in black silk stockings, stepped in slender high heels, quickened their pace, her figure swaying enticingly. Lu Chongqing was amused by Lu Miaohuan's half-annoyed, half-charming reproach and couldn't help but smile. He found teasing this seemingly aloof and noble second miss quite amusing. At that moment, Lu Chongqing noticed that after walking briskly for a stretch, Lu Miaohuan's pace had slowed down again. She even walked slower and slower, at a pace well below that of a normal person. Seeing this, Lu Chongqing's lips couldn't help but curl up slightly, revealing a trace of a smile, and he too slowed down his pace. He watched Lu Miaohuan move at such a slow pace, admiring the graceful and lithe figure of her from behind. It had to be said, the second miss figure, especially those long legs clad in black silk and high heels, was truly stunning. Only Feng Jinyang of the White Jade Tower could compare. But such things, everyone has their own flavor. Lu Chongqing already had so many wives, maids, and concubines, especially the maids purchased from the White Jade Tower not long ago, who all had looks and figures that were top-notch. But in his eyes, compared to this second miss, they certainly lacked that certain flavor. When it comes to physical appearance, after a certain point, it's all about status, temperament, and other aspects. Lu Miaohuan walked slowly for a while, and upon seeing that Lu Chongqing didn't catch up to coax her, she immediately felt some displeasure. She had walked away without paying him any attention, yet he didn't know to come and apologize. After walking slowly some more, Lu Miaohuan couldn't stand it any longer and decided to outright ignore Lu Chongqing, promptly walking away at a normal pace. Seeing that Lu Miaohuan had resumed her normal speed, Lu Chongqing immediately quickened his steps and in an instant came up beside her, giving her quite a scare. "All I wanted was for you to say thanks with a better attitude, but if you don't want to, that's fine, why get angry? It's not polite at all." Hearing Lu Chongqing's complaint, Lu Miaohuan felt so irritated that she didn't know where to vent her anger, thinking it was too annoying, and again she thought about ignoring him and walking away. But she also felt that it might not be very nice, indeed it wasn't very polite. Lu Miaohuan felt that even though she really disliked Lu Chongqing according to her usual temperament, she wouldn't be concerned about what's not so nice or polite, yet she subconsciously didn't think about why she was behaving this way. She was also somewhat afraid to consider why she was acting so out of character. "Lu Chongqing, why on earth did you decide to move out and live by yourself?" Lu Miaohuan asked as if it was no big deal. Every time you see me, second miss, you look disgusted and displeased. So I thought it over and decided to move out and live by myself. Lu Chongqing then said, Do you even know how to speak? Lu Miaohuan huffed, her tone anything but pleasant. She remembered that at the initial meeting for the arranged marriage, Lu Chongqing was actually very eloquent, making conversations very comfortable. Yet now he was so irritating. Isn't that what you asked me? Why I moved out? I'm just telling the truth, Lu Chongqing said with a shrug, looking helpless. Well then, to express my gratitude for today, from now on, I won't be disgusted by you. Lu Miaohuan snorted softly, speaking with a face of cold and noble beauty. No worries. Feel free to be disgusted if you like. Don't make yourself sick over it. And having seen it so many times, I've gotten used to it. I actually think you look pretty cute when you're disgusted, Lu Chongqing said casually. He felt that when chatting with a miss of such a temper, one has to do the opposite. Playing along with her was absolutely out of the question. Anyway, he didn't have too many pursuits regarding this second miss. If he did fancy anything, it was her body, so he was very unconcerned. Are you sick in the head? Lu Miaohuan, infuriated, kicked Lu Chongqing right away. She felt that she was being very patient in speaking to Lu Chongqing, yet every sentence he spoke was irksome. Lu Chongqing dodged lightly, and as he looked down, he saw Lu Miaohuan's delicate feet adorned with a pair of elegant crystal shoes, the exposed skin wrapped in a layer of black sheer stockings. The little feet in the high heels seemed to merge together, the curves flowing smoothly without showing a trace of abruptness, utterly captivating. As her small foot kicked out, the shapely calf peeked out from underneath the skirt hem through the thin-as-wing stockings, showing the skin's pale, delicate texture. Simply leg play year series material, irresistible to fantasize about cradling those jade feet and lovely legs in one's hands and thoroughly enjoying them. What are you looking at? Seeing Lu Chongqing looking down at something, Lu Miaohuan also lowered her head to look. She even lifted the beautiful and icy, silver-shining stiletto heel back and forth, checking for something, but found nothing out of the ordinary. The next moment, as if realizing what Lu Chongqing was looking at, she felt a hint of secret satisfaction and pride, and her mood improved a lot. Then, glancing at Lu Chongqing with a bit of scrutiny, she spoke coldly. Do you have some kind of strange fetish or something? P.S. Sigh, it was supposed to be just a short segment, but as I wrote, I couldn't stop, and now I don't know how to end it. I'll try to write less of this kind of plot in the future. Let's see if I can crank out another chapter today. If not, there will definitely be 2 updates tomorrow. Chapter 122. Stunning beauty like wolves and tigers, breaking down one's will. Underscore 1. What strange habits could I possibly have? Lu Chongqing's eyes were clear, and he spoke with a forthright demeanor. Watching the candid expression on Lu Chongqing's face, Lu Miaohuan eyed him suspiciously for a moment before shifting her gaze away without saying much. After all, if you look, you look. Dressing up like this was meant to be seen by others. Although she usually confronted such gazes with a "what are you looking at? Keep staring and I'll gouge out your eyes" attitude, or would directly scold them. At this moment, she didn't feel the slightest disdain or disgust towards Lu Chongqing's gaze. Instead, she felt a stealthy joy. She felt attractive, truly believing that she was the most beautiful. And so, the two walked side by side for a while. All right, I'm home now. See you later, 2nd Mississippi. When they reached an intersection, Lu Chongqing waved goodbye to Lu Miaohuan. He didn't have much to chat about with this second miss, and since he was home, it was natural to head back and take a bath. Seeing that Lu Chongqing only walked a short distance before leaving, without any intention to escort her or even asking if she wanted to visit and have a cup of tea, Lu Miaohuan pursed her lips in displeasure and huffed, saying, "Goodbye." Then, like a proud and aloof peacock, she left with the clack, clack, clack of her high heels. Night fell. The White Jade Tower sent the 4 maids purchased by Lu Chongqing. Since Lu Chongqing couldn't be bothered to wait, all 4 maids were readily available stock. But Xiao Yueru, who possessed a spiritual root, would only arrive within a month after notification from White Jade Tower. Gao He, the neighbor, saw that Lu Changxing had bought more maids and was somewhat speechless. He didn't frequently visit Lu Changxing's home but invited Lu Changxing to his place for tea instead because he felt it wasn't right to constantly visit when Lu Changxing's house was full of female family members. Seeing Lu Changxing buying more maids, Gao He couldn't help but think that he should be more cautious. After all, he had a daughter at home. Though his daughter was still young, Lu Changxing's appearance and temperament were attractive to both young and old, which caused him worry at this moment. Of course, Lu Changxing was not aware of Gao He's thoughts. With the addition of 4 new maids, he noticed another problem. That was, the yard was becoming too crowded. If this trend continued and a few more people were added, the dwelling would be too small, and they'd have to live crammed together. "Sigh, that's about enough, I need to take it easy," Lu Changxing said, shaking his head. The Lu family and Lu Miaoyun wouldn't say anything about his buying maids. But having acquired 10 children in just over half a year since coming to Nine Dragons Market was indeed a bit fast. Moreover, maintaining such a group of maids in Nine Dragons Market was no small expense. Since these maids were carrying his children, he naturally couldn't treat them unfairly. Their daily consumption of spirit rice and spirit food, and also the long-term residence permits they needed in Nine Dragons Marketplace, added up to no small sum once the numbers grew. Ordinary people couldn't afford to sustain such costs. Without much thought, Lu Changxing let the new maids assist him with his bath. The next afternoon, Lu Miaoge came to the spiritual talisman shop. It was to thank Lu Changxing for the matters concerning Lu Miaohuan. The Nine Dragons Marketplace was neither too big nor too small, and both the Lu and Zhang families had some influence within it, so it was normal for such news to reach both houses. To this, Lu Changxing naturally said it was a small matter, nothing significant. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. Aside from the addition of refining the Black Dragon magical bead to Lu Changxing's daily routine, there were no other changes. After half a month of refinement, he had almost cultivated a fifth of the Black Dragon magical bead. Of the 4 maids he had bought earlier, one had successfully conceived after receiving his favor. One day, a young servant came to the spiritual talisman shop. He was sent by the second elder to inform him. He mentioned that in 10 days they would be returning to Qingzhou Mountain and asked if Lu Changxing would like to join them. "Please tell the second elder that I will accompany him back at that time." Lu Changxing replied immediately upon hearing the message. He hadn't been back in about 4 months. Now that the second elder was returning, he would naturally take the opportunity to visit his home. 6 days later, it was time for the spiritual talisman shop to receive new stock and inspect the merchandise. Lu Changxing also informed Gao He in advance. With Gao He's help, the two completed the inspection of all the goods in 2 days. "Brother Gao, I've troubled you this time," Lu Changxing said, taking out 20 spirit stones. This was the wage they had agreed upon. "Where does that come from, Brother Lu?" "I should be thanking you," Gao He replied, not standing on ceremony and cheerfully accepting the spirit stones. As a middle-grade talisman master, a daily wage of 10 spirit stones was quite a decent extra income for him. After taking the spirit stones, Gao He hesitated before saying, "Brother Lu, there's something I'm not sure whether I should say." "Oh? Just speak your mind, Brother Gao. Is there really anything that should or shouldn't be said?" Lu Changxing raised an eyebrow and casually replied. "As a resident talisman master in the spiritual talisman shop, I often drink and chat with talisman masters and shopkeepers from other talisman shops, so I have a rough idea of the situation in the marketplace's talisman shops and the quality rate of their goods. Given the reputation of your Lu family's shop, the defects in these goods seem a bit unusual, especially for you, Brother Lu, who cancels contracts with different shops every few months. If this continues, I fear that you would have worked with every talisman master in the marketplace." Gao He started to say. Chapter 123. Stunning beauty like wolves and tigers, breaking down one's will. Upon hearing these words, Lu Changxing immediately understood what Gao He meant. It was a sign that there were some issues with the supplies for the shop. Having been in the shop for so long, how could he not understand the ins and outs? The entire procurement? purchasing, and partnership of the spiritual talisman shop were left to the shopkeeper Zhang Shan alone. To claim there was not a hint of embezzlement or personal gain, he couldn't believe it at all. He had casually established a supplier title himself for collaboration. It obviously wouldn't be difficult for Zhang Shan to do the same. However, Zhang Shan had been working in the spiritual talisman shop for over 10 years, and his performance was decent for the most part of this past year, capable of doing things well. Hence, taking a little extra for oneself wasn't entirely indefensible. As long as it wasn't excessive, Lu Chongqing was willing to turn a blind eye. After all, the clearest water has no fish. Thank you for the reminder, Brother Gao. I also understand the principles behind it, Lu Chongqing said with a smile. It seems I've said too much, but then again, there isn't really any serious problem, said Gao Shan, realizing that his concern was unnecessary. Having interacted with Lu Chongqing for so long and having a good relationship, he worried that Lu Chongqing, being so young, might be kept in the dark, so he spoke out as a reminder. Brother Gao, willing to discuss this with me shows that you regard me, Lu Chongqing, as a friend. Lu Chongqing waved his hand. Knowing Gao, he meant well. He also knew what kind of person Gao he was, or else he wouldn't have asked him for help. Soon after, the two left the shop with a laugh and went to the Jade Meal Pavilion for a meal. Upon seeing the two, the owner of the Jade Meal Pavilion, Yu Maoqing, gave them a 20% discount and even offered a plate of appetizers for free. 3 days later, second elder, Sister Miaoga, Lu Chongqing was bathing in the backyard. Upon hearing from the maid, Bai He, that the second elder and the young lady had come to visit, he promptly went to the living room. He, I originally intended to notify you to come directly to the great residence to stay, as we will be departing for Qingzhou Mountain early tomorrow morning. However, I thought you've been living by yourself for such a long time without us visiting, so we decided to come and see you. I hope we haven't disturbed you? In the hall, the second elder, clad in a green robe with a tall figure, held tea in his hand and said with a chuckle. Sister Miaoga, Lu Miaoga, sat elegantly in white to the side. How could that be? Second elder, your visit is most welcome, Lu Chongqing replied politely. Then Lu Chongqing chatted with the second elder for a while and took the second elder and Lu Miaoga on a brief tour of the yard. During the process, the second elder noticed so many birds and swallows in Lu Chongqing's yard and couldn't help but shake his head, thinking that Lu Chongqing's reputation for loving the company of women was indeed well-deserved. How long has it been since he came to the Nine Dragons market? In just over half a year, he had taken in so many maids and concubines with outstanding looks and figures. When he saw several maids and concubines with bulging bellies, he frowned slightly and took a closer look. Eventually, he realized that almost all the women in the yard were pregnant. The second elder couldn't help but count them. 1, 2, 3, 11. After tallying the number of pregnant women, the second elder was instantly bewildered. He had not expected Lu Chongqing to be so prolific with his concubines and maids, not only having so many but also getting them all pregnant. Was the vitality of the young so exuberant? Instead of cultivation, drawing spirit talismans, or working, were they occupied doing other things? The second elder looked at Lu Chongqing and inquired, Chongqing, are these all your newly taken maids and concubines? Carrying your children? Even though he knew his question was redundant, as these women were obviously Lu Chongqing's maids and concubines, carrying Lu Chongqing's children, he couldn't help but confirm once more, mainly because it was quite outrageous. For cultivators, indulgence in the pleasures of men and women could harm one's vital essence and affect the speed of cultivation. Even for cultivator couples practicing dual cultivation, they were extremely temperate, engaging only occasionally and never indulging excessively night after night. However, in Lu Chongqing's case, to have fathered 11 children in just over half a year was clearly overindulgence. Sister Miaoga, Lu Miaoga, pursed her lips and remained silent, but in her eyes, a faint sense of disappointment was visible. In her view, if Lu Chongqing were willing to focus on cultivation and the talisman path, there would be hope for success in foundation establishment after becoming a second-grade talisman master. She had also discussed these matters with Lu Chongqing before, but seeing Lu Chongqing bring Guan Xian to Nine Dragons Market, and now with so many maids and concubines, she couldn't help but feel disappointed. She knew that Lu Chongqing hadn't taken her words to heart. Yes, second elder, these are all my newly taken maids and concubines, carrying my children, Lu Chongqing replied, feeling somewhat embarrassed. He himself knew that in this world, as a cultivator, creating 11 children in just over half a year was relatively excessive. Although he hadn't felt this in his daily life, nor did he find it embarrassing, being questioned by the second elder brought up some embarrassment after all. After all, the latter was an elder to him, especially with Lu Miaoge also present. Ah! The second elder sighed upon hearing this, shaking his head. At that moment, he gained a deeper understanding of Lu Changsheng's reputation at Qingzhou Mountain for marrying and indulging in the pleasure of many wives and concubines. He coughed lightly and then said to Lu Chongqing, "Chongqing, the allure of beauty can be like wolves and tigers, eroding one's resolve. It is natural to occasionally enjoy and relax, but do not indulge too much in this, and instead, focus your time and energy on cultivation and the talisman path." The second elder spoke earnestly. Such matters, while outrageous, were a bit excessive. Chapter 124. Stunning beauty like wolves and tigers, breaking down one's will, but to say it was excessive, that wasn't quite the case. After all, it was his private life and it wasn't right for him to interfere too much. Thinking of this, he decided that after returning home, he would speak to the fourth elder, asking him to offer some persuasion. Otherwise, from his perspective, Lu Changsheng's utter lack of restraint in his behavior would truly lead to his ruin. If that happened, it would be a great loss to the Lu family as well. No venture, no gain. Lu Chongqing really wanted to say this, but he still responded seriously and respectfully. What second elder said is correct. Chongqing will heed the advice. The other party was an elder after all, and since the matter was mentioned, he behaved and listened obediently. As for what to do in the end, it was still up to him. However, Lu Chongqing himself also planned to be a bit more frugal for a while to save some money. He had previously wanted to buy vestment robes and beautifying spirit pills for his wives and children. But with his habit of spending as soon as he got money, the expenditures increased and he couldn't save anything. This time returning home, he didn't have enough money to buy any decently valuable gifts. Seeing this, the second elder didn't continue to say much. Too much talk of such matters could only lead to annoyance. Then Lu Chongqing left a message for Shao Qing and went with the second elder and Lu Miaoge to the eastern district to the Lu family's large courtyard where they would stay. They were preparing to return to Qingzhou Mountain early the next morning. They arrived at the eastern district's large courtyard, and the living quarters arranged for them were still the same from the last time. Knock, knock, knock. Lu Chongqing was meditating in his room when he heard a knocking at the door. He got up and opened the door. Miaoqing. Outside stood Lu Miaoqing. Chongqing, this is the spirit stone I borrowed from you. As soon as Lu Miaoqing saw Lu Chongqing, he directly took out 20 spirit stones and spoke. Lu Chongqing was somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected Lu Miaoqing to come and repay the debt voluntarily. To tell the truth, he had written off those 20 spirit stones as a loss. The other party's behavior was truly unexpected. Miaoqing, you are too polite. It was unnecessary to make a special trip. Lu Chongqing smiled and accepted the spirit stones. He could see that Lu Miaoqing now looked much better, spirit-wise. Probably because he hadn't been going to read books and savor tea for a while. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible to save up any spirit stones. What trouble? I've owed them to you for so long. Lu Miaoqing clapped Lu Changsheng's shoulder and enthusiastically said, Changsheng, next month's Spring Abundance Building is getting a new batch of tea. They'll treat you. Let's go together. Lu Changsheng's mouth twitched slightly. He thought Miaoqing had given it up, but it seemed he was mistaken. He waved his hand, declaring earnestly, Miaoqing, I never go to such places. Changsheng, let me tell you, this new tea, many of them are unopened. Lu Miaoqing continued speaking. No, I'd better not go. Lu Chongqing asserted firmly. With so many wives and maids at home, What need was there to go to these places? It was simply a waste of money and vitality. With that money, couldn't he buy a couple of maids, buy some gifts for his wife and children? Wouldn't that be delightful? Okay then. Seeing this, Lu Miaoqing found it dull and didn't persuade further. Lu Chongqing watched Lu Miaoqing's retreating figure, musing whether Miaoqing enjoyed himself to the fullest, then cultivated for health for a while before going back to his merry ways. A repeating cycle? Otherwise, why had he looked so drained before, and now perfectly normal despite not abstaining? Early the next morning, the second elder led Lu Chongsheng and several other Lu family members out of the Nine Dragons market through the eastern gate. He then took out a palm-sized yellowish-brown flying boat. Activated by mana, the flying boat immediately flew from his palm, transforming into a vessel about 10 feet long, with formation patterns drawn both inside and out. Get on, the second elder commanded. Lu Chongqing stepped onto the flying boat and found a seat to sit down. The flying boat had a total of 7 seats, and beneath the seats, sockets embedded with spirit stones could be seen. He knew this type of flying boat could be propelled by inserting spirit stones, replacing the need for cultivators to use mana to drive it. Otherwise, solely relying on a cultivator's mana to propel it, it would be impossible to achieve long-distance flying. The consumption would be too great. Let's go! After several people were seated, the second elder also boarded the flying boat, formed a spell with his hands, and caused a thin layer of water screen barrier to rise around the edge of the flying boat. Soaring into the air, it transformed into a streak of light shooting forward. At this speed, it's even faster than the Iron Feather Eagle by a bit. If we squeeze in a bit, we can fit about 10 people. Lu Chongqing thought to himself as he watched the flying boat's speed. He found the device quite good. If he had one of his own, it would be much more convenient to travel to and from the Nine Dragons market with his wives and concubines in the future. However, the price of such a flying boat would be at least 1,000 spirit stones. And a flying boat is relatively more conspicuous. Without a bit of strength, it is easy to attract unwanted attention on the way. 1.5 days later, the flying boat landed in front of Qingzhou Mountain. As everyone disembarked, Lu Chongqing cupped his hands in farewell and headed straight for his home. Husband. The husband is back. Daddy. 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 Just as Lu Chongqing walked into the courtyard, his wives and concubines and several children inside saw him and called out joyfully, crowding around him and hugging him. This scene brought a smile to Lu Chongqing's face, filled with warmth, as he picked up the 2 children who ran over. However, facing so many children, he could only put them down immediately, taking turns hugging each child. He also embraced his several wives. Although he had many maidservants in the Nine Dragons market, he missed the warm feeling of being with his wives and children here. He had been with his wives and children here for so many years, and they had developed a lot of affection for each other. Before long, Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin, among other women, also came with their children, their eyes filled with tender love as they approached Lu Chongqing. Lu Chongqing noticed that the little ones in their arms seemed to have grown a bit, very adorable. He then looked at the children of Shu'er and Jur. Both children had hair like their mothers, one red, one blue, but their pupils were black. Seeing his 2 somewhat unconventional children, Lu Chongqing also found them quite cute. Then Lu Chongqing spent time playing with the children and chatting with his wives, listening to some of their stories and sharing his own. Meanwhile, within Qingzhou Valley at another estate, second brother, are you telling me that since Chongqing moved out to live on his own in the Nine Dragons market, he has been indulging in the pleasures of women day in and day out, not only taking in a bunch of concubines but also getting each and every one of them pregnant? With more than a dozen children? The fourth elder asked in surprise after hearing the second elder's words, finding it hard to believe. She was different from the second elder. Having interacted with Lu Chongqing for so long, she knew he liked having children, but she didn't imagine him to be addicted to the pleasures of the flesh. Usually, he was very diligent and serious in his cultivation and talisman making. But now, hearing the second elder's words, she didn't know what to say, because, in her view, this behavior was indeed a bit over the top. Originally, when the Lu family took a son-in-law by marriage, They only asked for 50 children in 20 years. Yet, in just over half a year, Lu Chongqing had impregnated 11. If he continued at this rate, would he still cultivate or practice talisman making? Do I look like someone who likes to joke around? The second elder saw the fourth elder's disbelief and immediately said, Miaoge was there at the time. She also saw everything. You can ask Miaoge if you don't believe me. I wouldn't say much about this matter, but as an elder who is usually close, you can talk to Lu Chongqing at some point, and also let Miaoyun keep an eye on him. Otherwise, if this continues, I'm really afraid he will squander his talent on women. The second elder sighed. What he minded was not Lu Chongqing taking concubines. After all, it was quite normal for a man to be fond of women. However, in his view, Lu Chongqing's behavior was indeed a bit excessive. Women can be as ferocious as wolves and tigers. They can undermine a man's will. And Lu Chongqing, being so young with an unstable will, was very likely to lose control of himself in this regard. If this kept up, a remarkable talent in the talisman path could very well fall from grace. All right, he'll go check it out tomorrow. Ask Chongqing what's going on. What the deal is, the fourth elder said with a serious expression, nodding her head. She had a favorable impression of her grandson-in-law Lu Chongqing. She still did not believe that Lu Chongqing would completely drown in the pleasures of flesh and neglect his cultivation and talisman making. She planned to go see for herself the next day and find out what was happening, and to also check Lu Chongqing's skills in talisman making. Then she would know the truth. Chapter 125. I'm not pretending anymore. Actually, I am a spiritual body. _1 Lu Chongqing naturally didn't know that the second elder had gone and spoken to the fourth elder about his activities at the Nine Dragons marketplace. He was still playing in the courtyard with a group of little ones. The courtyard had been turned into something resembling a kindergarten playground by him. At this time, Lu Miaoyun stated that it was getting late, and she needed to go to White Deer Mountain Villa to pick up the children. In the previous few months, Lu Pingon, Lu Wuyo, Lu Wuyu, and Lu Shila had been sent to study at White Deer Mountain Villa on Qingzhou Mountain. Therefore, Lu Miaoyun and others usually took turns picking them up and dropping them off. Upon hearing it was time to pick up the kids, Lu Chongqing immediately expressed his desire to go along. He, as a father, had not yet had the chance to pick his children up from school. Soon after, Lu Chongqing and Lu Miaoyun left home, heading towards White Deer Mountain Villa. On the way, Lu Chongqing also shared with Lu Miaoyun about his life in the Nine Dragons marketplace. He bought quite a few maids and fathered quite a few children. One reason was that he felt there was nothing about this that needed to be hidden. The family would find out sooner or later. Additionally, he had a feeling that this matter would probably spread from the second elder to the fourth elder's ears, eventually reaching the ears of Lu Miaoyun and the other women in the family. Since that was the case, it would be better for him to mention it to Lu Miaoyun, his main wife, earlier. Moreover, since the second elder had a flying boat and it could accommodate a few more people, he planned to take Lu Miaoyun and a few others with him on his return trip to the Nine Dragons marketplace. Otherwise, coming back only once every 6 months meant that they would be apart for quite a long time. By the time they went to the Nine Dragons marketplace, Lu Miaoyun and the others would see for themselves, so it was better to give them a heads up to prepare them mentally. When Lu Miaoyun heard that Lu Chongqing had found so many maids, she fell silent for a moment. However, she didn't say anything and just playfully requested that Lu Chongqing spend more time with them in the coming days. Having a wife like this, what more could a husband ask for? Lu Chongqing mused to himself. While he could indeed take many maids and concubines if he wished, and Lu Miaoyun wouldn't have much to say about it, he still hoped his wives could understand and accept the arrangement, making the inner palace more peaceful. If not, the constant rivalry and jealousy in the palace would drive anyone crazy. And this was something he greatly appreciated about Lu Miaoyun. Husband, next year's spiritual root testing ceremony is coming up, and Pingon and the others will have to participate. Lu Miaoyun, holding on to Lu Chongqing's arm, spoke out. Upon hearing this, Lu Chongqing's heart missed a beat. Every year on February 2nd, Qingzhou Mountain held the spiritual root testing ceremony. It was to test the spiritual roots of all children aged 5 or 6. Lu Pingon, Lu Wuyo, Lu Wuyu, and Lu Shila were also approaching the age and would be eligible to participate next year. But Lu Chongxing was very clear in his heart that none of his 4 children had a spiritual root. Yes, who knows if any of them have a spiritual root? Lu Chongxing sighed lightly as he said this. At this moment, his heart could not help but feel a sense of sadness. He had a lot of affection for the children like Lu Pingon. Husband, maybe Pingon and the others all have spiritual roots. Lu Miaoyun, holding Lu Changsheng's hand, said softly. She knew that such a thing could be cruel for parents. If there were no spiritual roots, their futures would be divided between the worlds of immortals and mortals. She couldn't help but think of her own son, Lu Yun. If he also had no spiritual root, he would have to be sent into the secular world as well. Fine. With such matters, let nature take its course. If they have spiritual roots, they can learn talisman making with me in the future. If not, they can still lead a good life in the secular world. Lu Chongxing pinched his wife's hand and said with a laugh. He had long considered such matters and had prepared himself mentally. It was just that now, with Lu Miaoyun suddenly bringing it up, the reminder that the day was fast approaching made him feel a touch of sorrow. As they walked and talked, the couple arrived at White Deer Mountain Villa. The villa wasn't very large, about the same size as the estate where Lu Chongxing lived. Inside, there were many other men, women, and children coming to pick up kids, all from the Lu family. Chongxing Miaoyun. You're here to pick up the kids? Brother Chongxing, sister Miaoyun. Chongxing, little sister Miaoyun. Some recognized Lu Chongxing and Lu Miaoyun, and greeted them. Lu Chongxing didn't know many of them. Some he had seen but didn't know their names. Lu Miaoyun, on the other hand, knew most of them and greeted them warmly. Before long, the sound of a bell ringing came from the villa, and many children came out. They were all quite young, mostly 5 or 6 years old, with a few around 7 or 8. Because children without a spiritual root would be sent away from Qingzhou Mountain by the age of 8 or 9 at the latest. After all, being born on Qingzhou Mountain and having seen the cultivation world but being unable to cultivate oneself was a cruel reality to face if one remained there. Daddy X4, Mother Yun X4. Just then, 2 boys and 2 girls saw Lu Chongxing and Lu Miaoyun and called out. They then hurried over with their short little legs. As Lu Chongxing saw his own children, he immediately greeted them with a smile and scooped up Lu Wuyo and Lu Shila into his arms. Did you miss Daddy? Lu Chongxing asked as he pulled out sugar-glazed haws he had prepared from his storage bag and passed them to the girls. We did, the 2 little girls replied crisply. Then, Lu Chongxing turned to Lu Pingon and Lu Wuyu, who were standing aside somewhat bewildered, and handed each a sugar-glazed haw. He also pulled out one more and offered it to Lu Miaoyun. Since he had many children in his family, Lu Chongxing would directly buy these spirit fruit sugar-glazed haws wholesale. Lu Miaoyun, having received one as well, couldn't help but flash a sweet smile, her eyes curving like crescent moons. She took a bite from the sugar-glazed haw and then extended it for Lu Chongxing to take a bite. Chapter 126. I'm not pretending anymore. Actually, I am a spiritual body. So it went, as the family of 4 walked home, with Lu Chongxing carrying 2 children, and Lu Miaoyun leading the other 2 by the hand. So, what has your teacher been teaching you at school? Lu Chongxing asked aloud. He was quite curious about what the erudite tutor hired by the Lu family usually taught the children. He worried that the education within such a cultivation family might involve brainwashing from a young age, indoctrinating the children to be loyal to the family and such. Soon enough, the children began chirping to Lu Chongxing about their lessons, all while munching on candied haws. It was basic enlightenment education for children, teaching them reading and writing without any trace of brainwashing. Listening to his children's stories, Lu Chongxing felt a lot more at ease. That night, a separation can be sweeter than a honeymoon. During Lu Changsheng's previous visit home, Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin were pregnant and couldn't share his bed. This time, Lu Chongxing naturally had to make up for it. He also wanted to show the 2 women the strength he had gained from his recent success in body refinement. The next day, Well past sunrise, Lu Chongqing heard a knock at the door. After being told the fourth elder had come to visit, he dressed with the help of Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin and proceeded to the living room. Grandma! Grandma! When Lu Chongqing and Lu Miaoyun arrived in the living room, they immediately saw the fourth elder clad in a green dress, her black hair flecked with silver, lovingly cradling a baby in her arms. It didn't take much thought to realize she was holding Lu Yun. Although the fourth elder was fond of Lu Chongqing, she didn't extend this affection to every one of his children. It was just that she had a particular fondness for the great-grandson born to her granddaughter. It seems Grandma has come at an inappropriate time, the fourth elder said with a chuckle, lifting her gaze to the couple. She could tell at a glance that her granddaughter and grandson-in-law had probably just risen from bed and teased them with her remark. Lu Miaoyun blushed at the comment. Chongqing only returned yesterday, and he was preoccupied with accompanying his wives and children. He neglected to visit Grandma, and hopes for her understanding, Lu Chongqing said, his demeanor easy and composed. He sensed the fourth elder's visit wasn't just a simple check-in on her great-grandson. Otherwise, there would have been no need to inform him and Lu Miaoyun. Grandma was just missing my dear great-grandson and thought to visit, seeing as you, Chongqing, have returned, the fourth elder said heartily. Soon, she chatted with Lu Chongqing and Lu Miaoyun about everyday family matters. When the conversation was nearly over, the fourth elder turned to Lu Chongqing and said, Chongqing, you've been away for some time. Let Grandma see how your talisman-making skill is faring, to make sure it hasn't slipped. The fourth elder stated this goal of her visit. After all, the words spoken by the second elder yesterday compelled her to make sure Lu Chongqing was in good shape. But she wouldn't outright mention the concerns about Lu Chongqing being too absorbed in pleasures of the flesh and fathering children. Instead, she used the pretext of checking his talisman-making skill to see if his cultivation or talisman-making had suffered any neglect. If there was no neglect, all the better. If there had been, she would have a reason to admonish him, to prevent him from succumbing to indulgence. Chongqing has returned this time also wishing to consult with Grandma and asks for her guidance. Lu Chongqing murmured to himself, having anticipated the fourth elder's purpose. He spoke earnestly. Then he stood up, moved to a table and took out his talisman-making tools from a storage bag. Seeing this, Lu Miaoyun took little Lu Yun from the fourth elder's arms and stepped out of the room, so as not to disturb her husband while making talismans with the baby's fussing. Making middle-grade talismans wasn't a challenge for Lu Chongqing, even with a child's noise. He could even manage it with one hand while holding a child in the other, but naturally he couldn't show that now. After Lu Miaoyun left with the child, Lu Chongqing began crafting talismans under the watchful eye of the fourth elder, his magic artifact pen in hand, dutifully etching the talisman. He was making a middle-grade Earth Escape talisman, which the fourth elder had previously taught him. Before long, Lu Chongqing completed the Earth Escape talisman smoothly and expertly. Chongqing, you've become so proficient with the Earth Escape talisman? Seeing Lu Chongqing fluently complete the talisman, the fourth elder's face immediately lit up with pleasant surprise. Just over 4 months ago, she had started teaching him to craft the Earth Escape talisman. But at this moment, not only had Lu Chongqing successfully crafted it, but he did so with practiced ease, achieving a success rate of around 70 to 80%. This came as a delightful surprise to her. She realized at once that Lu Chongqing had by no means neglected the talisman path during his time in Nine Dragons Market. It's all thanks to your initial guidance, Grandma, Lu Chongqing said with a modest laugh, continuing, Grandma, not only have I mastered the Earth Escape talisman, but in my recent explorations, I've also made inroads into the Frost talisman, though I'm still not quite proficient and would like to seek your guidance. Since he had an inkling of the fourth elder's reasons for her visit, Lu Chongqing naturally had to play his part well and put on a good show. He had already been considering that his frenzied acquisition of concubines and servants might not sit well with the family. The Lu family was bound to have some concerns. Therefore, he thought it over and concocted a reason or excuse for himself. What, you've made progress with the Frost talisman? The fourth elder, hearing this, could hardly maintain her composure. Her graceful facade slipped for a moment. Her eyes widened with shock and disbelief as she gazed at Lu Chongsheng. Her look resembled Duan Yanqing's when he learned that Duan Yu was his own son. Astonished disbelief. "Yes, Grandma, I've indeed made progress, but I still need more practice," Lu Chongsheng replied to the elderly lady, managing not to betray any emotion, thinking to himself that he may have overplayed his hand. Chapter 127. "I'm not pretending anymore. Actually, I am a spiritual body." "Okay, show me how you draw a frost talisman," said the fourth elder as she took a deep breath. The frost talisman was a middle-grade talisman of similar difficulty to the earth escape talisman. But the problem was that she had never taught Lu Chongsheng the frost talisman. It was just over 4 months ago that she taught Lu Chongsheng the earth escape talisman. For Lu Chongsheng to have reached such proficiency with the earth escape talisman in 4 months was already incredibly surprising. Yet now, Lu Chongsheng was telling her that not only had he mastered the earth escape talisman, but he had also managed to grasp the basics of the frost talisman on his own. How could she not be shocked? Under the fourth elder's watchful eye, Lu Chongsheng clumsily began to draw the frost talisman. As expected, the first attempt naturally ended in failure. When you're drawing, the flow of your spiritual power isn't smooth enough, which causes it to dissipate a bit. On seeing this, the fourth elder gently pointed out the issue in a mild tone. "Yes, grandmother." Lu Chongsheng nodded, then continued drawing again. But it was still a failure. The fourth elder continued to identify the problem. However, her look at Lu Chongsheng was different now. She could tell that Lu Chongsheng did indeed have a certain degree of proficiency with the frost talisman. At this moment, Lu Chongsheng took a sip of white jade 100 flowers wine and started his third attempt at drawing. Finally, under the fourth elder's gaze, Lu Chongsheng fortunately managed to successfully draw the frost talisman. Although it's still not proficient, it's evident that you have indeed grasped the basics of the frost talisman. The fourth elder looked at the frost talisman, her expression full of surprise and delight, but also somewhat incredulous. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would have never believed that Lu Chongsheng could become so skilled with the earth escape talisman in just over 4 months, while also mastering the basics of the frost talisman. This talent for talisman making was simply, completely beyond what Lu Chongsheng had displayed before in his talismanic aptitude. "Chongsheng, how did you do it? I heard from the second elder that during this period at 9 Dragons Market, you have taken quite a few concubines into your residence, some of whom you are indulging in." The fourth elder began, her tone also uncertain what to say next. She had actually planned to use this check on his talisman-making skill as an excuse to give Lu Chongsheng a little scolding. But to her surprise, Lu Chongsheng's talisman-making skills had not only not deteriorated in the slightest. They were unexpectedly much more advanced than before. She was momentarily dumbfounded. She even doubted whether the second elder had been deceiving her. After all, how could someone who spends his days indulging in pleasures and fathering children have so much energy to devote to talisman making? Upon hearing the fourth elder's words, Lu Chongsheng thought to himself that the second elder had indeed told her about these matters. He fell silent, saying nothing. "It's fine, as long as your cultivation and your pursuit of the talisman path are not delayed," said the fourth elder, not pressing him further upon seeing his silence. After all, with Lu Chongsheng performing so excellently in talisman making, what more could she say? Hearing this, Lu Chongsheng bit his lip and responded, "I won't hide it from you, grandmother, and you might not believe these words. I have found that after being intimate, drawing talismans afterward feels extremely smooth. Even those aspects of talisman making I didn't understand or couldn't figure out, after being intimate more frequently, my thoughts started to clear up much more, and drawing talismans felt almost effortless," Lu Chongsheng stated. This was an excuse Lu Chongsheng had come up with after some thought, to justify why he seemed so naturally gifted on the talisman path, as well as why he had taken multiple wives and concubines to bear his children. As for how plausible this reason sounded, it wasn't too far-fetched within the cultivation world. Not to mention that there was a precedence that could very well explain what Lu Chongsheng had said. Spiritual body. In the cultivation world, there are a myriad of spiritual bodies, such as the 5 elements spiritual body that boosts cultivation, the charming female body that is beneficial for dual cultivation, the calamitous poison body for poison cultivators, the supreme sword bone for sword cultivators, and many more. Among these, there are certainly some that are specifically related to the talisman path. These specific bodies make one naturally attuned with the great Tao of talismans, allowing rapid advancement in talisman making. As for whether there's a sort of body that improves one's talisman-making skill through intimacy, Lu Chongqing didn't know if such a thing existed. But the world is vast. Who's to say for certain? Moreover, spiritual bodies can be either manifest or latent. The Lu family, being merely a foundation establishment family, could not be expected to have a deep understanding or extensive research into spiritual bodies. That's why Lu Chongqing dared to attribute his condition to having a potentially latent spiritual body. As for whether this pretense would bring any trouble, Lu Chongqing wasn't worried. After all, his condition wasn't that outlandish. It was simply a relatively unusual aptitude for the talisman path. The Lu family certainly wouldn't cause any trouble over such a matter. Perhaps, on the contrary, due to this development, his talent and potential would be further acknowledged, thus adding another layer of expectation to him. Chapter 128. Chongqing, Grandma will speak on my own's behalf after intercourse. Drawing talismans becomes very smooth. Even some parts one didn't understand or know clear up after frequent intercourse, and my thoughts become more fluid. Upon hearing this, the 4th elder was startled and fell into deep thought. Although what Lu Chongqing said sounded preposterous, she did not doubt the truth of his words. After all, anything is possible in the cultivation world. Not to mention improving talisman skills through intercourse. She had heard of even more absurd and unimaginable things. Moreover, after interacting and understanding him for so long, she had a certain trust in Lu Chongqing. She felt there was no need for him to deceive her with such words. Furthermore, the facts were right before her eyes. Lu Chongqing had proved what he said through his actions. Could it be that Chongqing possesses some kind of physique related to the talisman path? The 4th elder speculated in her heart. Only that reason could explain Lu Chongqing's situation. A peasant boy with no prior exposure to cultivation or the talisman path, yet displaying exceptional talents in the realm of talisman making. Through self-study and pondering, in a year and a half, he became an elementary talisman master. And despite spending much time and energy on matters between men and women, he still progressed rapidly in the talisman path. She had considered this issue before, but had merely thought that Lu Chongqing was exceptionally talented in talismans and also very diligent and hardworking. Now, considering the idea of a spiritual body, the thought that Lu Chongqing might have a talisman-related spiritual body made everything seem reasonable. Grandma, do you know what's going on with me? Seeing the 4th elder deep in thought, Lu Chongqing asked. Chongqing, I have never heard of such a situation. The 4th elder shook her head and inquired, besides this, do you have any other abnormalities? No, before I just felt that my hands were better at making talismans and my thoughts flowed better after intercourse. But I didn't think too much about it or pay it too much attention. It was also after this visit to the 9 Dragons market that I gradually realized intercourse could impact my talisman making, so I became somewhat indulgent for a while, Lu Chongqing explained. He wanted to attribute his condition to his spiritual body, but he couldn't say anything too excessive or preposterous. As long as he could justify his situation and gloss over it, that would suffice to avoid having to worry about the Lu family's attitude when taking a wife, concubines, and having children in the future. Chongqing, I suspect that you might possibly possess a special talisman-related physique? After a moment's thought, the 4th elder articulated her speculation. A talisman physique? Grandma, I had also suspected that I might have some spiritual body, but there's so little information on spiritual bodies, and I haven't found any similar cases to mine, Lu Chongqing continued. Information regarding spiritual bodies is scarce, and I don't know much about it either. My speculation is based on the fact that spiritual bodies are different from spiritual roots and can represent all manner of strange constitutions. The 4th elder sighed slightly. Then, looking at Lu Chongqing with a solemn expression, she admonished, Changsheng, concerning this matter, you must not tell anyone else. If others come to know of it, it could very well bring you danger and trouble. The fourth elder warned. Grandma, rest assured, I definitely won't tell anyone else about this, and I would only mention it to you, Lu Changsheng assured her. Very well, Changsheng, don't worry. I will keep this matter a secret for you, the fourth elder said, feeling very reassured upon hearing his words. She thought to herself that this grandson-in-law was not only affectionate but also treated her as his own kin. She then said, Changsheng, concerning your situation, I shouldn't comment too much on your matters with women, but remember, Changsheng, the talisman path is important, but bodily health and cultivation level are the foundation. If your health and cultivation level fall short, you will also find it hard to make advancements in the talisman path, so you must not indulge excessively in matters between men and women, and pay attention to your health and cultivation. Regarding taking a wife and concubines, as long as it's not excessive, I will speak for you to the Lu family and Miaoyun, the fourth elder said thoughtfully and seriously. She knew that Lu Changsheng, with his constitution, couldn't possibly stay away from the pleasures of women, hoping only that he would proceed gradually, not to deplete the reservoir to catch the fish and ruin himself in the process. Grandma, I understand that too. Lu Changsheng immediately nodded. As long as you understand that, it's fine. The fourth elder nodded, saying no more, knowing that her grandson-in-law, aside from his indulgence in women and having children, was commendable in other aspects. He was sensible and knew what was important. She figured that his recent indulgence in 9 Dragon Square could be attributed to this constitution. Suddenly, she felt that Lu Changsheng's preferences and his physique were indeed a perfect match. Changsheng, you should also be somewhat cautious about having children. Otherwise, too many children in the future will be a considerable burden on you and affect your well-being, the fourth elder added, thinking of Lu Changsheng's situation with over 10 children in just over half a year. In the family, children can be a source of strength and a legacy, but beyond a certain point, they can also become a liability. Their needs can distract one's energy and at times draw one into turmoil. Grandma, you know that I'm a man without great ambitions, and I don't covet that fleeting hope of foundation establishment. I'm already content with my current life, and my plan is to have many children for a full household in the future. If any of the children have a spiritual root, they'll fully support their cultivation so that they can have an easier and further future, he declared. Chapter 129. Changsheng, Grandma will speak on Miaoyun's behalf. Lu Changsheng spoke, saying the following. This was not his first time expressing his aspiration publicly, so he appeared very sincere in his speech. Okay, Grandma understands. Just take care of yourself, and don't neglect your cultivation. The fourth elder sighed softly upon hearing this. She also knew that Lu Changsheng did not have grand ambitions and did not have a great pursuit in the realm of cultivation. It was only in the matter of wives and concubines bearing children that he had a certain obsession. But considering Lu Changsheng's 9th grade spiritual root, she couldn't say much about it and chose to be understanding. Moreover, for the Lu family, they hoped for the same from Lu Changsheng. A person who only sought a stable life with a warm family was much better than one full of ambition, solely focused on the path of cultivation. Thank you, Grandma. Lu Changsheng bowed with a clasped fist in gratitude, knowing that this matter was now in the past. And with this spiritual body as a cover, whether for taking wives, concubines, having children, or advancing in the talisman path, explanations would now be much more convenient. We're all family, no need for such courtesy with Grandma, the fourth elder said with a loving smile on her face. Then she proceeded to give guidance on drawing the frost talisman. After teaching the frost talisman, and considering Lu Changsheng's physical condition, knowing that his trip to 9 Dragons Market would mean he wouldn't return for some time, she taught Lu Changsheng 2 more middle-grade talismans. It wasn't to make him learn them right away, but just to explain them to him, so that he could more easily learn to explore them by himself in the future. After finishing the talisman-making lesson, the fourth elder also held her heavy grandson for a while and chatted with Lu Miaoyun before leaving. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. During this time, Apart from spending time with his wives, Lu Chongqing also visited Li Feiyu. He met with this good friend to catch up and chat. Li Feiyu was still immersed in backbreaking work, acting as a butcher, nurturing spirits, casually working as a purifying craftsman, and even raising 2 black hogs at home. Knowing that advice would be futile, Lu Chongqing didn't urge him further. They simply had a meal, chatted, and when leaving, Lu Chongqing gave red envelopes to the children. "Let's go." Lu Chongqing, accompanied by Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin, headed out, preparing to go to Nine Dragons Market. This time, Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin were also going to Nine Dragons Market with him. This was after discussion with his numerous wives and concubines. Each trip, he would take 2 wives to stay in Nine Dragons Market for a short while. 2 people were chosen because the second elder's flying boat had limited seating. Too many people would mean potentially no seats available. Before leaving, Lu Chongqing also entrusted the business of trading talismans with Hong Yi to Lu Lanshu. If Hong Yi's people arrived, she could just take the talisman box to complete the trade. After all, such matters were simply a case of exchanging goods for money. Now, his dealings with Hong Yi had expanded, from the original 3-month deal of 30 low-grade talismans to 50 low-grade talismans and 10 middle-grade talismans. Lu Chongqing and the 2 ladies arrived at the gates of Qingzhou Mountain, where they saw the second elder and 2 other Lu family disciples waiting. Yesterday, Lu Chongqing had already informed the second elder in advance about taking Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin on the flying boat to Nine Dragons Market. "Second elder, second elder, Grandpa second." The 3 greeted the second elder with a salute. Since you've arrived, let's get going," the second elder said with a smile, nodding. He then released the flying boat and had everyone get on board. Chu Zhenjin, experiencing her first flight on a flying boat, was visibly nervous, holding tightly onto Lu Chongqing. As the flying boat took off, she looked around curiously and would timidly lean to whisper into Lu Chongqing's ear. But even these whispers, no matter how quietly spoken, could be heard by everyone else. In such a manner, after a day and a half, the flying boat landed safely in the outskirts of Nine Dragons Market. Lu Chongqing arranged for long-term identity passes for Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin. Even though the women were only going to live there for about half a year, short-term passes were only valid for half a month, so it was better to get long-term ones. After bidding farewell to the second elder, Lu Chongqing led the 2 ladies to their residence. Miss, little Qing, nearly 6 months pregnant, was sporting a baby bump. Seeing Lu Miaoyun, her face suddenly flushed with a hint of shame. Initially, Lu Miaoyun had sent her to Nine Dragons Market with Lu Chongqing to keep an eye on him, and now she was greeting her, heavily pregnant. Miaoyun's sister, Zhenjin's sister, Guan Xian, also called out to the 2 women. Following that, Lu Chongqing introduced Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin to the other women in the courtyard. "Greetings, madam. Greetings, madam. Greetings, madam." Xiao Yuyao and several other maids saluted. Although most of these maids were also pregnant, since they had entered this world, the inevitable hierarchy between wives, concubines, and maids was still evident. Even though Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin had already been informed in advance about the multitude of wives and concubines Lu Chongqing had in Nine Dragons Market, seeing a courtyard full of women, all pregnant, they couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Lu Chongqing noticed the slight jealousy of his 2 wives. After making introductions, he took them out shopping, dining, and enjoying themselves. The 2 women had been living a monotonous life in Qingzhou Valley. In Nine Dragons Market, indulging in shopping and entertainment made them extremely happy, dissipating any minor displeasure they had. Over these 3 days, Lu Chongqing spent over 100 spirit stones shopping and having fun with the 2 ladies. With Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin joining the household, Lu Chongqing's life did not change much. He just moderated his actions regarding intimate relations a bit. Chapter 130. Chongqing, Grandma will speak on Miaoyun's behalf. It was not like before, sleeping together under a large quilt each day. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month had passed. Lu Chongqing received news from White Jade Tower that the maid he had purchased, Xiao Yueru, had been delivered and asked him to come over for the inspection. Immediately, Lu Chongsheng went to White Jade Tower and looked over his new maid. She had a dignified and pretty appearance, with black hair neatly done up, giving off a mature wife's charm. Her almond-shaped eyes were dull, but under her high nose bridge, her lips were plump. She would probably look very sweet if she smiled. She wore a light blue dress that showcased her tall and slender figure, with a full and proud bust that almost burst through the fabric. Although she lacked elegance, she was very eye-catching, and her full hips were also shocking, heavy like honey peaches. Yueru has seen young Master Lu. Xiao Yuer's face was still somewhat pale and haggard, her voice soft and gentle, like a willow brushing against water. "Miss Xiao, are you willing to be this young master's maid?" Lu Chongqing looked at Xiao Yueru before him and asked indifferently. Lu someone, even if he spent money, never coerced anyone. Xiao Yueru also knew her fate. She couldn't refuse such matters. Moreover, the young man in front of her, from his looks and temperament, didn't seem like a bad person. She immediately showed a hint of a smile and bowed gracefully. Yueru is willing to be the young master's maid. Her smile was indeed sweet, like a delightful young girl, perfectly blending mature charm with the amorousness in her eyes and eyebrows. "All right, Manager Feng, I'm quite satisfied." Hearing this, Lu Chongqing also showed a faint smile and spoke to Feng Jinyang. After completing the transaction with Feng Jinyang, holding on to Xiao Yuer's spiritual contract, he took her home with him. On the way, Lu Chongqing directly spoke to Xiao Yueru, saying the reason he bought a maid was to have children. As long as she could give birth to several children, he would not mistreat her. Regarding other things, he said nothing further, nor did he inquire about Xiao Yuer's circumstances. After all, having gone through White Jade Tower, these karmic matters were no longer his concern. He also didn't have the ability to help sort things out. After speaking these words, Lu Chongqing suddenly felt a hint of trance. He remembered, back when he was expelled by Qingyun sect, Lu Yuanding appeared and talked about finding a son-in-law having 50 children in 20 years. At this moment, he and the past Lu Yuanding seemed strikingly similar. This is life. Lu Chongqing felt somewhat moved in his heart. Then he laughed lightly and said, "Whether good or bad, one should live without regrets." Back home, because of Xiao Yuer's matter, Lu Chongqing had already talked to Lu Miaoyun. So after bringing her home, Lu Miaoyun had no objections. He arranged for Xiao Yueru to share a room with another maid. Since Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin had arrived, the courtyard seemed a bit cramped. Thus, a few maids ended up sharing rooms, 2 or 3 to a room. In the day-to-day life, Lu Chongqing saw that Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin were often bored, so he occasionally taught the two talisman making. He thought of leveraging his own talisman-making skill to see if he could make both women into talisman masters. Lu Miaoyun had been verified by the fourth elder and indeed lacked the talent for it. Chu Jinjin was a bit better, but still not notably so. This made Lu Chongqing sigh inwardly, fearing that having his children learn a skill would be difficult as well. Without any talent, one could only rely on money. However, skills built up by money alone had their limits. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, over a month had passed. Xiao Yueru became pregnant under Lu Changsheng's care, and the child in Xiao Yuyo's womb was also born. To Lu Changsheng's disappointment, this child did not possess a spiritual root. Half a month later, in the spiritual talisman shop, on the 3rd floor in the talisman room. Phew! Lu Chongqing let out a long breath, looking at the black dragon magical bead floating before him. His eyes filled with joy. After nearly 3 months of refinement, this magical treasure was finally ready for him to integrate into his body. Immediately, Lu Chongqing took off his top garment, revealing a well-defined and smooth chest. He planned to integrate the black dragon magical bead into his breastbone. However, each body part could only be integrated with one magical treasure. To integrate the black dragon magical bead, he would first need to remove the shard of the previous treasure from within his breastbone. Chi! With a light exhalation, Lu Chongqing activated the 100 Refinements treasure body art. A glowing light of precious energy circulated on his chest, and the black birthmark formed by a chunk of iron started to wriggle gently. Gradually, a black shard emerged slowly from his chest, bit by bit. After a long time, the shard of the magical treasure was removed. Lu Chongqing took a sip of jade bamboo liquor and then held a spirit stone to recover his spiritual power. Refining the black dragon magical bead and removing the shard had taken a toll on him. He needed to restore his inner spiritual power before he could continue to integrate the black dragon magical bead. When his spiritual power was sufficiently restored, Lu Chongqing began to integrate the black dragon magical bead into his body. Under the concentration of his spiritual power, the black dragon magical bead slowly assimilated with Lu Changsheng's chest. Like this, as time passed bit by bit, the black dragon magical bead completely merged into Lu Changsheng's chest, integrated into his breastbone. This left the pattern of a black dragon magical bead on his chest. As the black dragon magical bead entered his breastbone, Lu Chongqing felt a powerful force washing over and refining his flesh, meridians, and bones. He felt as if his 100 refinements treasure body art was training and improving at every moment. Is this the effect of integrating a magical treasure into my body? It's 100 times better than the previous magical treasure shard. With this force refining me, even if I don't cultivate, just give it a couple of years and my 100 refinements treasure body art will break through to the second level. Lu Chongqing quietly savored the refining power of the black dragon magical bead, his face full of surprise and happiness. The effect of integrating the magical treasure into his body was several times better than he had anticipated. If he continued to cultivate like this, the strength of his body refinement would fully catch up with his qi refinement. I wonder when he'll be able to draw a qi refinement cultivation technique. I'm so done with this lousy returning origin technique, Lu Chongqing thought to himself. If he had a qi refinement cultivation technique like the 100 refinements treasure body art, not only would his foundations and strength improve, but his cultivation speed might also increase. However, Miaoyun is about to give birth soon. If this child possesses a spiritual root, then, according to my earlier guess, there is a very likely chance to receive a draw. Lu Chongqing let out a long sigh, thinking to himself. At that moment, he prepared to put on his top garment, looking at the dark, gleaming pattern on his chest, where an indistinct image of a flood dragon seemed to come and go, and he nodded in satisfaction. It looks much better now. In his view, this pattern was so much more attractive than the previous one from the magical treasure shard, which looked like a black birthmark. There's only a bit of spiritual essence left in this shard, which makes it unnecessary to integrate it elsewhere, Lu Chongqing remarked as he looked at the shard in his hand. This shard had been in his body for nearly a year already, helping him in his cultivation. Most of the spiritual essence inside was consumed. Otherwise, he could have integrated the shard into a hand or foot bone to assist his cultivation. Seeing that it was getting late, Lu Chongqing got up to tidy up and left the spiritual talisman shop to head home. Chapter 131. Lao Lu, do you want a wife? _1. Lu Taoist. I don't know if your spiritual talisman shop has sold out of supreme talismans? Just as Lu Chongqing reached his home's entrance, the courtyard door to the left opened. A middle-aged man in his 40s with thick eyebrows, a square face, and a calm demeanor stepped out and called out to Lu Chongqing upon seeing him. Xia Taoist, all 3 of the supreme talismans in my shop for this month have already been sold. Are you going to hunt some demon beast again that you actually need to buy a supreme talisman? Lu Chongqing said, somewhat surprised. The middle-aged man was named Xiaolong and had moved in a few months ago as a new neighbor. Like the neighbor who had moved away previously, he said he usually hunted demon beasts to earn money. As for the truth of that statement, Lu Chongqing did not know. This neighbor often went out and wasn't home much, but he knew that Lu Chongqing was a talisman master and that he was the owner of Lu family's spiritual talisman shop. He would usually come to Lu Chongqing to buy talismans. I've made plans with a few fellow Taoists to explore an ancient tomb, so I thought to purchase a few talismans for protection from you. Xiaolong spoke up. I only have 3 supreme talismans in my shop each month, and they are usually reserved. If you want one, Xia Daoist, I can keep one aside for you when we restock. If you're in urgent need, I still have a few premium talismans on me. I don't know if they would be of use to you, Xia Daoist. Lu Chongqing said so. He did possess supreme talismans he had made, but they weren't readily available for sale. After all, the shop sold only 3 each month. Just one extra could attract unwanted attention from the observant. However, selling premium talismans was no big deal. He had plenty on hand and didn't mind selling more. May I ask which premium talismans you have on you, Lu Daoist? Xiaolong asked. Lu Chongqing listed several types of premium-grade premium talismans. Afterward, Xiaolong purchased a thunder-summoning talisman and an escape talisman. Both talismans were sold for 50 spirit stones each, but Lu Chongqing gave a discount and charged Xiaolong 90 spirit stones. The other party was straightforward and did not haggle. Thank you, Lu Daoist. Xiaolong put away the talismans and bowed slightly. You're too polite, Xia Daoist. With 90 spirit stones in his account, Lu Chongqing felt quite pleased with himself. After all, this money was for his personal account, and the cost of making those 2 talismans was only 4 or 5 spirit stones. A profit margin of 20 times. Absolutely exorbitant. Xiaolong then took his leave shortly after. Running a dungeon? I've never experienced anything like that. There's no need for me to try it, though. Although the return is high, the risk is great too. A single misstep and it could cost you your life. Lu Chongqing watched Xiaolong's retreating figure and shook his head slightly, entering his home. He was somewhat curious about exploring the ancient tombs and secret realms like others did, but he had no desire to try such endeavors. With the system at his side, he didn't need to struggle and fight as Xiaolong did. All he needed was to honestly pursue his path without contest or strife, calmly getting married, taking concubines, raising children, and the great Tao could be expected. If he worked too hard, striving too much, he might end up on an inferior path. Half a month later, the child in little Qing's belly was born. This child also had no spiritual root, which caused Lu Chongqing to let out a sigh. The firstborn children of Chu Zhenjin and Lu Miaoyun had spiritual roots, which had filled him with great expectations for the offspring of his wives and concubines blessed with spiritual roots. But now, 3 children in a row, born to wives and concubines with spiritual roots, were without them. It inevitably brought some disappointment to his heart. Phew, no matter. There's no rush. The chance will come eventually. After all, this kind of thing only has a probability of 1 or 2 in 10. Lu Chongqing exhaled deeply, consoling himself. And with the birth of 2 new babies, Lu Chongqing was faced with another concern, child-rearing. In 9 Dragons Market, raising children was naturally no problem. But as the number of children grew, it would become somewhat inconvenient. One reason was that the courtyard was too small to accommodate all of them. As the children grew, there was also no place for them to play or have activities. Furthermore, when the children reached a few years older, he had to consider their education. After pondering for a moment, Lu Chongqing planned to send the children to Qingzhou Mountain for upbringing when the second elder returned there. In Qingzhou Mountain, not only was the environment better and more spacious, but the children also had companions. A bunch of brothers and sisters could grow up together and strengthen their relationships. Additionally, in 9 Dragons Market, children over 6 years old would be charged a residence fee, which was utterly ridiculous. Is the stress of raising children one of the reasons cultivators don't like having them? After all, for a cultivator, the ages between 20 and 50 are considered prime years, the time to make progress with vigor. If one has children at that age, it's an added burden. Not only do you have to nurture and educate the child, but whatever you do in the future, you also have to consider the child. Lu Chongqing suddenly thought to himself. He felt that if he did not have Qingzhou Mountain as a strong rear base, it would be quite a burden to support so many wives and children within the cultivation marketplace. He might only be able to set up his family and make a living in the mundane world. At this moment, Lu Chongqing gained a deeper understanding of the land aspect in the wealth, companionship, and land triad. He realized that to start a family and establish his own cultivation family, it was essential to have his own land. Whether it was owning several properties in a cultivation marketplace like Nine Dragons Market or like the Lu family, possessing a spiritual vein-blessed land such as Qingzhou Mountain. In the blink of an eye, another month passed. Lu Changsheng's life continued as usual. Every day he engaged in cultivation, talisman making, went to work, and occasionally accompanied his wives and maids on shopping trips. Chapter 132, Lao Lu, do you want a wife? After all, with these maids pregnant, a stroll around the street is beneficial for their physical and mental health. And during this past month, both Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin had conceived their second and third child, respectively. These events were also under Lu Changsheng's control. Now, with half a year since the two ladies had their babies, their bodies had fully recuperated. The only downside was that this baby-making had left both women with virtually no progress in their cultivation. For this matter, Lu Changsheng could only compensate them doubly later on. One day, Lu Changsheng took his wives, concubines, and maids out shopping. Husband, I want to eat this. Husband, I think this dress suits little Yuner very well. Zhenjin sis, does this dress make me look pretty? The wives and concubines chatted away cheerfully. Time is the cure for everything. Now, the numbness and lifelessness in Xiao Yuyo's eyes had completely disappeared, and she had become much more cheerful. Xiao Yueru had improved a lot over these past few months as well. Looking at her slightly bulging stomach, occasionally stroking it, a motherly smile appeared on her face. All right, let's buy it. Lu Changsheng responded readily to every request his wives and maids made. As long as he didn't spend lavishly on magic artifacts or precious items, or on buying maids, he could save quite a bit of spirit stones each month. Xiao Yueru, standing aside, looked at Lu Changsheng, whose face was full of gentle smiles, and her beautiful eyes sparkled with an unfathomable light. In this world, the status of maids and concubines is very low. For maids like them who had ended up in the White Jade Tower, most of their fates were to be treated as tools for reproduction or outlets for lust. But Lu Changsheng treated them not as equals to his wives, but still exceptionally well. Even better than back in her own family. They didn't need to toil for a living, had spirit rice and spirit food for every meal, along with sweet spirit delicacies. They were also cared for and attended to regularly. Even if it was just a simple gesture of concern, it deeply touched their hearts. After shopping, Lu Changsheng and the ladies returned home. As they entered the door, they happened to meet Yu Maoqing, who was also returning home. He was accompanied by his wife, Yu Ningrong, and a girl about 16 or 17 years old, cute and lovely. Yu Maoqing saw Lu Changsheng, flanked closely by Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin, holding his arm affectionately, and followed by 4 maids. He really didn't know what to say. He couldn't understand how someone could live a life like Lu Changsheng's. Everyone was the son-in-law of a cultivation family. Why was the difference so vast? Lu Changsheng was a talisman master, but he himself was also a spirit cooking chef. Yu Maoqing was truly envious, but he still greeted Lu Changsheng with a smile and a nod. Husband, what do you think about marrying Qianqian off to Lu Changsheng? Just as he entered the house, Yu Maoqing heard a voice. It was his wife Yu Ningrong speaking. My lady, you want to betroth Qianqian to Lu Changsheng? Yu Maoqing was slightly stunned and replied telepathically. Yun Qianqian was the daughter of his wife's good friend. Recently, after her parents suffered an accident and left only her behind, she was left in the care of his wife. They had just brought Yun Qianqian to the Nine Dragons marketplace today, preparing to arrange for her to help out in the shop. He hadn't expected his wife to think of betrothing Yun Qianqian to Lu Changsheng at this moment. Thinking about Lu Changsheng being surrounded by so many wives and maids, and now his wife wanting to marry Yun Qianqian to him, it almost made him grit his teeth to dust. Damn it! You're really something, Yu Maoqing thought enviously. That's right, Qianqian is soft-hearted and not very independent. Working as a helper in our shop is not a long-term solution. Sooner or later, she has to marry into a good family. Although Lu Chongqing has many wives and concubines, through my contacts and chats with them, I feel that he treats his wives rather well. Even as a concubine, it would be a good family to marry into. Yu Ningrong said so. It could work. I've known Lu Chongqing for a while now, and aside from being overly fond of women and having children, he is a decent person in other aspects. Not only is he a middle-grade talisman master, but his appearance, temperament, and personality are all first class. If we arrange for Qianqian to marry him, it would be a good match. And since we are here and familiar with each other, I reckon Lu Chongqing wouldn't treat Qianqian unfairly. After pondering for a moment, Yu Maoqing spoke. He might envy Lu Chongqing, but after interacting for so long, he felt that Lu Chongqing was a pretty good and reliable person. Upon hearing this, Yu Ningrong nodded slightly. She then looked at the young girl beside her and said, Qianqian, what do you think of that Talisman Master Lu just now? Talisman Master Lu? The one across the door? He seems suave and gifted, just a bit of a philanderer. Yun Qianqian uttered, pursing her lips. Indeed, Talisman Master Lu is quite the romantic. Aside from these wives and maids, he has several more wives and about a dozen maids at home. Yu Ningrong straightforwardly said, but I've met him a few times and spoken with his wives. I know that although Talisman Master Lu is flirtatious, he treats his wives quite well. Your mother entrusted you to my care, and ultimately you have to marry into a good family. If you're willing, Aunt Rong can arrange a marriage for you and betroth you to Talisman Master Lu. Yu Ningrong continued to speak. Upon hearing this, Yun Qianqian was slightly taken aback. Thinking of Lu Changsheng's handsome and elegant appearance and that he was a talisman master, her eyes lowered, and a blush crept onto her cheeks. She whispered, as Aunt Rong decides. Chapter 133, Lao Lu, do you want a wife? Yu Ningrong couldn't help but smile at the scene. To herself, she thought that the Talisman Master Lu was truly handsome. Just one encounter and her niece was behaving like this. She gently stroked Yun Qianqian's hair, then said aloud, all right, then it's settled. Later, your Aunt Rong will go ask for you. The next day, Lu Chongsheng was working at the spiritual talisman shop when he heard from Zhang Shan that Yu Maocheng was looking for him. He descended the stairs with some confusion. Brother Lu, do you want a wife? Yu Maocheng asked directly as soon as he saw Lu Chongsheng. Lu Chongsheng was startled by the question. What the hell? He already had so many wives. Why was someone asking if he wanted another? Do I look like I lack wives? Seeing Lu Changsheng's surprised expression, Yu Maocheng explained the situation with Yun Qianqian to him. All right, then send her over, Lu Chongsheng said with a chuckle after hearing Yu Maocheng's words. His approach to taking wives and concubines nowadays was naturally not as simple as before. He had several major requirements in mind. First, she must possess a spiritual root. Next, he did not want someone with too high of a cultivation level. No good in terms of character? Unwanted. Profound family background? Unwanted. Burdened with karma and entanglements? Unwanted. As for attributes like appearance, figure, gentleness, and understanding, or being alone and helpless, those were bonus points. The Yun Qianqian whom Yu Maocheng introduced was a perfect match for his criteria. She possessed an 8th grade spiritual root, was at the 2nd level of qi refinement, and had a gentle and understanding personality. Not only was she without a family background, but her parents had both passed away, leaving her alone. The only close person she had was Yu Maocheng's wife, Yu Ningrong. And Lu Chongsheng had also met this Yun Qianqian the day before. Although he hadn't looked at her closely, he could tell she was fairly attractive and above average in terms of looks. For Lu Chongsheng, such a woman could naturally be taken as a concubine. You agreed just like that? Yu Maocheng was startled when Lu Chongsheng immediately agreed after he had finished speaking. Otherwise, Lu Chongsheng replied, you don't need to check with your wife first? Yu Maocheng expressed his confusion. Yuner is very understanding. She will surely understand and support me in this matter, Lu Chongsheng said. Damn it. You're really infuriating, you know? This is even more painful than killing me. Yu Maoqing stood up and left upon hearing these words. He then said he would bring Yun Qianqian to Lu Changsheng's house later to settle the matter. It seems having a few friends does have its benefits, Lu Changsheng thought to himself after Yu Maoqing had left. As night fell, Lu Changsheng finished work and headed home. Before Lu Changsheng could bring up Yun Qianqian's matter, Lu Miaoyun brought it up proactively with him. Not only had Yu Maoqing discussed it with Lu Changsheng, Yu Ningrong had also spoken about it with Lu Miaoyun that day. And Lu Miaoyun had long since come to terms with this aspect of Lu Changsheng's life. Knowing her husband always wanted to bring more wives and concubines into the household for a blessing of many children, she naturally agreed immediately to the favorable concubine arriving at their doorstep. My dear Yuner, marrying you is truly the greatest fortune of my life, Lu Changsheng said. Just as they were about to have dinner, he came to notify them that Yu Maoqing and his wife had come for a visit. Lu Changsheng instantly knew they must have come about Yun Qianqian's matter. He immediately got up to receive them. Brother Yu, sister-in-law. Lu Changsheng greeted Yu Maoqing and Yu Ningrong with hands clasped together. A young girl followed behind the couple. It was Yun Qianqian. Looking at Yun Qianqian, he saw that she had dressed up specially for the occasion. Her black hair was done up in an elaborate coiffure, decorated with a jade butterfly hairpin with tasseled pearls hanging from it. She wore a lake blue tube-top dress, with a figure that was not spectacular, but was starting to take shape. Her almond-shaped eyes were clear and animated, betrayed a hint of shyness at this moment. Her oval-shaped face was sweet and endearing, the kind one could keep looking at without tiring, pleasing to the eye. Brother Yu, sister Rong, you haven't dined yet, right? You've come at the perfect time. Join us for a meal. Lu Miaoyun also came out, speaking to Yu Maoqing and Yu Ningrong. Then, turning to the slightly nervous Yun Qianqian with an air of grace and poise, she said, You must be Qianqian, right? Lu's sister, Yun Qianqian called out. Although she called Yu Maoqing and Yu Ningrong uncle and auntie, it obviously wasn't appropriate to call Lu Miaoyun auntie now. After all, the day before, Yu Ningrong had made Lu Changsheng's situation and their family circumstances clear to her once more. So her current visit meant that the matter was effectively settled. Come on, let's go inside and have something to eat. Lu Miaoyun warmly took Yun Qianqian's hand and invited Yu Maoqing and Yu Ningrong into the house. Yu Maoqing, witnessing the scene before him, felt as if he were in a magical world. When the three entered the dining hall and saw Lu Changsheng being surrounded by a group of women, they were even more bewildered. They knew Lu Changsheng had numerous wives, concubines, and maids, but seeing the large dining table encircled by more than a dozen women, many of whom were obviously pregnant, presented a sight that was too intense, too staggering. However, seeing that all the women seemed happy, and the food comprised spirit rice, spiritual vegetables, and demon beast meat, along with spiritual tea to drink, they felt more at ease. Soon, Yu Maoqing and Yu Ningrong, accompanied by Yun Qianqian, took their seats and ate a few bites, and thus the concubine acceptance was considered settled. There wasn't much red tape involved. They just planned to book 2 tables at the Jade Meal Pavilion after a couple of days to treat a few neighbors and friends, to make it official. Lu Miaoyun largely took charge of this event. It was the first time Lu Changsheng accepted a concubine with the active involvement of his wife, Lu Miaoyun. 3 days later, Yun Qianqian officially crossed the threshold of the house. With a soft song from a young girl, she formally became one of Lu Changsheng's concubines. That year, Lu Changsheng was 24 years old, with 5 wives, 9 concubines, 2 favored consorts, and 15 maids. Chapter 134, Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates, 77 Children. _1 The peaceful and leisurely life always seemed to fly by quickly. In the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. During this month or so, Yun Qianqian had perfectly integrated into the big family of Lu Changsheng, and was successfully pregnant with a child. This made Yu Maoqing and his wife couldn't help but marvel at Lu Changsheng's efficiency. During a conversation, Yu Maoqing asked Lu Chongqing how he would support so many children in the future. While it's said that the poor raise their children one way and the rich another, if a child had a spiritual root, no matter what, it would still require a considerable amount of expense. Faced with this inquiry, Lu Chongqing exhibited an air of nonchalance, indicating that as a talisman master, he had some savings. He was also saving money for his children's future upbringing. After all, he didn't mind suffering a bit himself, but he absolutely couldn't let his children suffer. Hearing Lu Changsheng's words, Yu Maoqing immediately revealed an expression like that of an old man scrutinizing a smartphone. He believed Lu Chongqing wouldn't let his children suffer. But no matter how he looked at it, he didn't think Lu Chongqing was the type to let himself suffer either. Yu Maoqing had never seen anyone who knew how to enjoy life quite like Lu Chongqing. Not only was he served by a host of wives and maids, his eating, drinking, spending, and shopping habits also made him, with a mere 10 spirit stones a month, look on with great envy. However, things like this Yu Maoqing wouldn't inquire too much about. With the relationship involving Yun Qianqian, although there was more interaction between the two families, it wasn't as if they were like in-laws. Knowing that Yun Qianqian was doing well in Lu Changsheng's household was enough for them. On this day, Lu Chongqing was in the spiritual talisman shop drawing talismans. All of a sudden, he felt an indescribable sense of wonder. It gave Lu Chongqing the premonition that his spiritual root had advanced. From an 8th grade spiritual root to a 7th grade spiritual root. Did I just have a child with a spiritual root born? Under this thrilling realization, Lu Chongqing was suddenly startled and his face showed a surprised delight. The talisman he was creating failed, and the paper emitted a wisp of blue smoke. Lu Chongqing didn't mind, and after a brief sensing, he shook his head and said, "No, this is not the thrill of a child's spiritual root contributing. This is just a natural enhancement, an elevation from an 8th grade spiritual root to a 7th grade spiritual root." That's right, the spiritual roots of my 4 children are still developing, so it's as if my own spiritual root is growing as well. With the previous enhancements, my spiritual root had already neared the pinnacle of 8th grade, and now as it grows, it has naturally advanced to 7th grade. Lu Chongqing quickly understood what was happening. Based on the timing, it was indeed true that 2 of his wives on Qingzhou Mountain would be giving birth to their children around this time. But he could feel that he hadn't received any enhancement thrill from the spiritual root. There was only an inherent feeling that his spiritual root had advanced. 7th grade spiritual root. Phew! I've finally advanced to a 7th grade spiritual root. Just one more step, and it'll be a middle grade spiritual root, an immortal seedling. Lu Chongqing took a deep breath and exhaled it slowly, his face full of joy. The spiritual root was the foundation of one's cultivation. For Lu Chongqing, the spiritual root was not just the foundation of his cultivation. It was also related to the upper limit of his future children's spiritual root quality. After all, the quality of the parent's spiritual roots can influence that of their children's. The better his own spiritual root, the better his future children's spiritual root potential would be. Although he was working hard to improve the quality of his children's mothers, how could he, as a father, lag behind? Going on like this, the later the children are born, not only will the conditions and environment get better and better, but their talents will also stand on the shoulders of their brothers and sisters, with increasingly higher limits. Lu Chongqing couldn't help but sigh. It seemed to him that as long as he continued to have children and improve, maybe in the future, he could have a whole family of advanced-level spiritual roots, even heavenly spiritual roots. He then attempted to experience the cultivation speed of his 7th grade spiritual root. However, the silent and progressive enhancement of his spiritual root didn't feel like a significant change from before. An 8th grade spiritual root and a 7th grade spiritual root are both lower grade spiritual roots. There's not a noticeable difference in this progress. I imagine the upgrade from a lower grade to a middle grade spiritual root will bring a notable change. And I wonder how much help the advancement of my spiritual root from 8th grade to 7th grade will be in overcoming the bottleneck from the middle stage to the energy refinement late stage. Lu Chongqing shook his head slightly, glancing at his qi ocean core that was like a stream of thick spiritual energy. He would meditate for 2 hours every day to cultivate, but there was still no movement in his cultivation level. He could only rely on gradual progress, waiting for a breakthrough opportunity. But if he really wanted to break through, Lu Chongqing had also inquired. A high-grade breakthrough elixir, 1,200 spirit stones. It could help someone from energy refinement middle stage to break through to the late stage. He could afford it if he saved for a year, but to Lu Chongqing it didn't seem necessary. As he didn't venture out, compete with others, or go dungeon crawling, having a sufficient cultivation level was good enough. He didn't need to rush. Taking yellow dragon elixirs to aid in cultivation was enough for him. Such breakthrough elixirs could impact his future foundation establishment. Guan Xian should be giving birth soon. Wonder if this child will have a spiritual root. Lu Chongqing stretched his limbs, looking out at the clear azure sky, feeling a sense of anticipation. He had become quite philosophical about children born to wives without spiritual roots, but he couldn't help feeling a bit of anticipation when it came to those wives who did have spiritual roots. After 10 days, Lu Chongqing discovered that 2 of his maids were pregnant. Chapter 135. Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. 7,749 children. The 4 maids purchased before. Now only 1 remains who hasn't conceived. But Lu Chongqing wasn't concerned, not in a rush to supplement. After all, there's only 1 big stick. Now that there were already so many ordinary maids, it was time to save some money and add a few high-quality ones. Besides, Lu Miaoyun was still at the 9 Dragons market. Out of respect for his wife, Lu Chongqing would still restrain himself somewhat. At least wait until next month, when Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin returned to Qingzhou Mountain, before strolling through the White Jade Tower again. 6 days later. On this day, Lu Chongqing didn't go to the spiritual talisman shop and just sat at home, because the child in Guanxin's belly was about to be born. Wah! With a cry, an extraordinary trembling emanated from Lu Chongqing's entire being. It was the vibration of the spiritual root. The child had the spiritual root, a surge that was added onto his own. Simultaneously, as he bathed in surprise, a system prompt sounded. Congratulations to the host for the birth of 5 offspring with spiritual roots. You have earned 1 lottery draw. This vibration and the system prompt filled Lu Chongqing with indescribable joy and excitement. His state of mind was gradually improving. He didn't show too much excitement. A gentle smile appeared on his face, elegant and refreshing like a spring breeze. He and Lu Miaoyun entered the room. Master, it's a precious little miss, the midwife said, beaming with smiles. Good. Thank you for your hard work, Lu Chongqing said as he handed over a spirit stone. This was a midwife hired from the 9 Dragons market, the same one who had helped with the previous births. He felt that, in the future, he would also need to hire a resident midwife at home. Although with his wives and concubines eating spirit rice and spirit food daily to nourish their bodies, there would likely be no issues with childbirth. These measures still had to be foolproof. Thank you so much, Master Lu, the midwife said as she accepted the spirit stone, her smile blooming like a chrysanthemum. Lu Chongqing picked up the child, a very adorable infant. Knowing the child bore a spiritual root, Lu Chongqing's heart was filled with extra joy, finding the child cuter the more he looked. The sight also caused Guan Xian to flash a happy smile. She had felt a faint sense of disappointment knowing she gave birth to a daughter, fearing Lu Chongqing might not like it as much. After all, in this world, the mindset of valuing males over females still existed. Seeing the smile on Lu Chongqing's face, she immediately felt much more at ease. After the birth of the child, Lu Chongqing didn't rush to leave for the lottery draw. He stayed with Guan Xian and the other wives and concubines, chatting and talking. It wasn't until the afternoon that he mentioned going to check on the shop. After arriving at the spiritual talisman shop, Lu Chongqing headed straight to the 3rd floor, then began the part he was most looking forward to. System, I want to draw the lottery, Lu Chongqing thought silently. Instantly, the pale red system lottery wheel appeared. I wonder what I will draw this time. If not a cultivation technique, another magical treasure would also be nice. Lu Chongqing thought to himself as he looked at the lottery wheel, filled with anticipation. After all, the black dragon magical bead had been of great assistance to him. If he could refine a magical treasure for each of his limbs, he reckoned his cultivation would soar. Lu Chongqing didn't think too much. He simply commanded, "Start the draw." Immediately, golden lights on the wheel began to spin. Under Lu Changsheng's expectant gaze, the golden light slowly settled on the treasures section of the lottery wheel. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining an extraordinary treasure. Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. The reward has been issued to the system space. The host can check it at any time. A dark, black-colored scroll with bizarre patterns emerged along with the system prompt. Extraordinary treasure. Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates? Lu Chongqing was somewhat surprised to see the reward he had drawn. Energy refining cultivators use magic artifacts. Foundation building great cultivators use spiritual artifacts. Nascent soul immortals wield magical treasures. But extraordinary treasures belong to a special category outside this system. Their biggest difference is that everyone can refine and use them without such high requirements for cultivation level. Some powerful extraordinary treasures, even those at the energy refining or foundation establishment cultivation levels, may harm a nascent soul immortal. Lu Chongqing immediately turned to look at the system space, to see what effects this Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates held. Extraordinary treasure. Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. Grade. 3rd rank. Description. Crafted by the ancient witch clan using the evil aura between heaven and earth. One simply needs to visualize the individual while looking at the manuscript to cast a curse across space, entangling the victim's flesh, spirit, and soul with the malevolent curse for 49 days, leading to the gradual decay of the flesh and the annihilation of the soul, ending in death. The description of the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates emerged. Is this a cursing type of treasure? Lu Chongqing, upon reading the introduction, immediately grasped the effects of the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. This piece of the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates looked very formidable. But Lu Chongqing was aware that being 3rd rank, it could at most curse those at the core formation stage. Furthermore, such extraordinary treasures would certainly have limitations and side effects. He called forth the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. Instantly, a thick, jet-black manuscript that looked like a book but couldn't be turned appeared before Lu Chongqing. There were no words on the manuscript, only faint black patterns. These patterns looked like threads of malevolent energy slowly flowing, giving off an eerie impression. And as he extracted this Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates, a stream of information also entered Lu Chongqing's mind. A detailed description of this extraordinary treasure. Indeed, just as he had guessed, this Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates, while appearing formidable, was ultimately just a 3rd rank extraordinary treasure with limited effects. First, this Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates was a one-time use treasure. Once used, it would be gone. Next, it could only kill nascent soul immortals at most. And it came with side effects. Chapter 136. Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. 7,749 children. To curse others, one must also pay a price. It costs years of one's life, and with the decline of vital energy and blood, one must cultivate a calm mind for recuperation to recover. To curse an energy refinement cultivator, one loses 1 to 3 years of life. To curse a foundation building cultivator, 10 to 30 years of life are forfeited. To curse a core formation cultivator, over 100 years are lost. As for a nascent soul true lord, although it's impossible to curse them to death, if one wishes, they can still be inflicted with minor annoyances, letting the malevolent chi plague them, causing their flesh to wither and their spirits to become feeble. As for the cost, it depends on one's own cultivation level, strength, and lifespan. If one does not possess the power of the nascent soul stage, taking such actions would essentially lead to the decay of the physical body, the extinction of the soul, and consequently, death. The Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates, this artifact, how should I put it? Lu Chongqing looked at the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates in front of him, which slightly resembled a memorial portrait frame, smacked his lips, and for a moment, did not know how to describe it. Its power was unquestionable. One only needs to silently ponder over someone to cast a curse from afar, ignoring distance. It wasn't like some other curse methods he had seen or heard about in books, which required collecting the target's hair, blood, or items they had used, among other things. In other words, being in the Qi refinement realm, having met a foundation-building cultivator, he could just silently focus on the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates, sacrifice years of his own lifespan, and then he would be able to curse them to death. If he were reckless enough not to care about his life, although he might not necessarily be able to curse a nascent soul immortal to death, he could still cause them to be plagued by malevolent curses, thus leading to their flesh decaying, their spirits languishing, their strength greatly diminishing, and their cultivation ceasing to advance. This kind of action, no matter where it's applied, is incredibly shocking. But in Lu Changsheng's eyes, the cost was simply too great, hardly worth it. After all, an energy refinement cultivator's lifespan is barely over 100 years. If he were to curse a foundation-building great cultivator, he would have to sacrifice at least 20 to 30 years of life. Moreover, it's not just about losing years of life. Vital energy would also decline, which would affect one's strength. Cultivation aside, it's estimated that even childbearing would be impacted. However, this treasure does not require a specific owner to claim it. It doesn't restrict who can use it. If I'm willing, I could completely allow someone else to use it, letting them sacrifice their lifespan to help me curse others. But who would be willing to bear such risks and be trustworthy? It's too dangerous. Therefore, I shall keep this treasure as a last resort, not to be used unless absolutely necessary. Lu Chongsheng looked at the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates in his hand, shook his head slightly, and put it away in his storage bag. He decided that if any unworthy Qi refinement realm cultivator dared to trouble him and pushed him too far, he would carve their portrait into this Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. As for core formation immortals, it wasn't worth it, as it would be akin to mutual destruction. After finishing the draw, Lu Chongqing suddenly felt a sense of tastelessness. He then sat cross-legged and began to meditate on cultivation, to see how much of a boost his daughter's 8th grade spiritual root would provide to his cultivation. After a long while, through experience, Lu Chongqing felt that the boost was less than 10%. He estimated that his daughter's spiritual root was at most an 8th grade spiritual root. However, Lu Chongqing was quite satisfied with this. At this stage, just having a spiritual root was sufficient. What need was there for anything more? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Lu Chongqing believed that as long as he worked hard, his talents would eventually reach unprecedented heights. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days passed. That day, the second elder came to visit Lu Changsheng's home again. After casually chatting, he mentioned that within half a month, he would be returning to Qingzhou Mountain. He asked Lu Chongsheng and Lu Miaoyun, along with others, if they wanted to go back with him. To this, Lu Chongqing naturally expressed his desire to return. Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhangjin also expressed their wishes to return to Qingzhou Mountain for prenatal care and to call for other sisters to join them. Lu Chongqing had originally planned to send Guan Xian to Qingzhou Mountain as well, to rest and to look after the children. But due to the limited seats in the flying boat, only 3, he had to abandon the idea. Lu Chongqing also inquired with the second elder if it would be okay for infants to ride on the flying boat. He was planning to send his 3 children back to Qingzhou Mountain to be raised. The second elder said there were no significant issues, but it would be best if Lu Chongqing bought several pieces of warm sun jade. This warm sun jade is a type of spirit jade that can isolate cold and nurture the body. With it, infants on the flying boat would not catch a cold and could sleep more peacefully. After the second elder finished discussing the matters and chatted for a while, he left cheerfully. His visit was naturally not just about notifying Lu Chongqing about the return trip to Qingzhou Mountain. Was such a trivial matter worth the trouble for the eminent second elder of the Lu family to come personally? He was mainly coming over to see if, after being counseled by the fourth elder, Lu Chongqing had still been recklessly taking concubines and buying maids and indulging in the company of women in the past 6 months. From his observations, he was quite satisfied with Lu Changsheng's behavior. The children were still being born, but it was obviously a lot better than before. Lu Miaoyun also told him that in the past 6 months, Lu Chongqing had only taken 1 concubine and bought 1 maid, which was very reassuring to him. He felt that the effects of the advice he had the fourth elder give were quite good. Preparing to return in half a month, the next day, Lu Chongsheng went out with Lu Miaoyun, Chu Jinjin, and the other ladies to stroll the streets. He planned to buy some gifts to take back. During this process, Lu Chongsheng found the warm sun jade that second elder mentioned to be very cheap. Cost only 2 spirit stones apiece. He directly purchased 35 pieces. After all, how could a father favor some over others? Even if he was relatively more fond of certain children. But for small things like this, if possible, he still tried to treat everyone equally. So now, with 35 children, he simply bought 35 pieces, 1 for each child. After that, Lu Chongqing strolled through the marketplace, inquiring about the prices of the ever-youth elixirs. His wives had been with him for many years, bearing him so many children. Naturally, he had to give them something valuable. The best among these was, of course, the ever-youth elixir. It had the effect of everlasting youth. But the ever-youth elixir was a second-rank elixir, and the price was very high. First-rank elixir medicines for youth preservation included the ever-youth elixir and beautifying elixir. The ever-youth elixir could preserve one's appearance, but after about a decade or so, it would still gradually change. The price was 100 spirit stones. The beautifying elixir had the effect of nourishing yin and beautifying the complexion. It was beneficial in abundance. Taking 1 every 3 years would also achieve the effect of the ever-youth elixir. The price was 20 spirit stones per pill. Lu Chongqing thought for a moment and directly purchased 16 beautifying elixirs. 1 for each of his current wives. A total of 320 spirit stones. The shopkeeper gave him a discount of 20 spirit stones, and in the end, he spent 300 spirit stones. It was only at times like these that Lu Chongqing felt how difficult it was to support so many wives and children. 10 days later, Lu Chongsheng, Lu Miaoyun, and Chu Zhenjin, each holding a baby, went to live in the large courtyard in the Eastern District, preparing to return to Qingzhou Mountain with second elder. The 3 Lu family disciples who accompanied them were all cousins of Lu Miaoyun. 2 of them had also been along on the last trip. They saw that before they came, Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin were fine. But when they were returning, not only did their bellies slightly protrude, but they were also each holding a baby with Lu Chongqing. This left them somewhat confused and astonished. After that, they asked Lu Chongqing what the situation was, and where the children came from. In response to these questions, Lu Chongqing didn't hide anything. He simply said that he had taken a few concubines here and bought some maids. These 3 children had just been born recently, and he planned to take them back to Qingzhou Mountain to raise them. Hearing this, the 3 of them exchanged looks with each other. As Lu family disciples, they naturally knew of Lu Changsheng's reputation at Qingzhou Mountain. He was good with women and prodigious in fathering children. Knowing was one thing, but they hadn't expected Lu Chongqing to restlessly procreate everywhere he went. Especially one of Lu Miaoyun's cousins, who asked Lu Chongqing how many children he had by now. Lu Chongqing said there were 35 born, with another 14 on the way, not only leaving the 3 of them bewildered but also stunned. Second elder, who was steering the flying boat, couldn't help his mouth twitching, his face a mixture of bemusement and shock. Back in the day, when the Lu family sought a son-in-law, the requirement was to have 50 children in 20 years. Now, in just over 6 years, Lu Chongqing already had 49 children. P.S. Because I plan to try for a 10,000 words day, the update times may be erratic, and I likely won't be able to update on time at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Please forgive me. Chapter 137. 7th Level of Qi Refinement. Lottery. _1 2 days later. A flying boat descended outside Qingzhou Mountain. Lu Chongsheng and his family of 6, alongside the second elder and a few others, disembarked from the flying boat and entered Qingzhou Mountain. Along the way, people noticed Lu Chongsheng carrying a child, Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhanjin with slightly bulging bellies also holding infants, which sparked curiosity and some discussion among the onlookers. Why are Lu Chongsheng and sister Miaoyun still carrying a baby each when they return? They must be their own children. I remember they didn't take any babies with them when they left. Wasn't Lu Chongsheng supposed to be managing the store in the marketplace? Could it be that he fathered the children while away? Then he's really good at this, isn't he? Just popping out kids wherever he goes? Don't you know? Lu Chongsheng really loves having children. Just look at Sister Miaoyun and that Chu Zhanjin. They're pregnant again. Gosh, when it comes to having kids, I only respect Lu Chongsheng. If the family head had recruited more of these immortal seedlings like Lu Chongsheng to begin with, who knows how much vitality they could have brought to our Lu family. Many of the Lu family disciples talked among themselves. Damn, wasn't Lu Chongsheng obliged to have 50 children? Why is he going to such lengths? You can tell. He genuinely loves having kids from the bottom of his heart. I'm still short of 38 children. Think if I ask Lu Chongsheng to help me have them, would he agree? A few of the immortal seedlings muttered to themselves upon witnessing this scene. Lu Chongsheng was unaware of others' curiosity and commentary, but even if he knew, it wouldn't matter to him. After all, it's not like they're saying anything bad. He genuinely loves having children. Once back at home, Lu Chongsheng settled the 3 infants. He went to see his 33rd and 34th children. Even though all the babies looked more or less the same, and having so many children might seem overwhelming. But as a father, upon returning home, he had to see his children. Afterward, Lu Chongsheng handed out elixir medicines and some gifts he had purchased to his wives and concubines. Thank you, husband. This item is too precious. You're being too generous, my husband. Thank you, Sister Miaoyun. The wives and concubines were overjoyed and touched upon seeing these gifts and hearing about the effects of the elixir medicines. They had not expected Lu Chongsheng to give them such precious elixir medicines. For them, these were truly divine pills. Several wives and concubines, moved by the gesture, even burst into tears. These first wives and concubines, all from the Lu family's secular world, married Lu Chongsheng back then simply for the rewards offered by the Lu family, with the idea of contributing to the clan. At most, there was the notion of gaining status through their children, hoping to give birth to children with spiritual roots. They had no real expectations for Lu Chongsheng as a husband. Never could they have imagined that Lu Chongsheng would go from a mere breeding son-in-law to the point where he is now. Their status, along with Lu Chongsheng, rose with the tide. They were living a blissful life beyond their wildest dreams. Now that Lu Chongsheng had reached this status, they were starting to feel inferior, aware that they were no longer worthy of being his wives and concubines. Still, Lu Chongsheng's treatment of them remained unchanged. The bestowing of such precious gifts made them feel beyond moved and filled with joy, leading to tears. They felt that choosing to marry Lu Chongsheng was the most correct decision in their lives. Why are you crying now? Lu Chongsheng hadn't expected that a simple gift would move them to tears and immediately began to console them. Husband, you've simply been too good to your concubine, making me overwhelmed and so happy. Lu Yuzhu said, her face filled with emotion. You are my wives and concubines. If I'm not good to you, to whom should I be? This is just the beginning. In the future, our home will become better and better, and life for you and the children will continue to improve. Lu Chongsheng wiped her tears away and spoke gently. While these wives and concubines might not epitomize the proverbial wives of poor circumstances, Lu Chongsheng was not the type to forget old faces upon meeting new ones. As he always said, let pragmatism be pragmatism. Since they have become his wives and the mothers of his children, he, Lu Chongsheng, would shoulder the responsibilities he ought to. His words moved the other wives and concubines deeply. Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhanjin were also greatly touched by this. After all, this world, at its core, belonged to a feudal society dominated by the law of the jungle. Although Lu Chongqing had numerous wives and concubines, his behavior was respectable, marking him as one of the few good men who respected women. After comforting his wives, Lu Chongqing had the children capable of walking line up to receive their gifts. "Thank you, Daddy." "Mua." "Thank you, Daddy." The children were clearly delighted at receiving gifts, things to eat and play with. As for the very young ones who couldn't walk or speak and were still in their swaddles, Lu Chongqing simply turned the warm sun jade into pendants and hung them around their necks. After these tasks were completed, seeing the joyous and delighted faces of his wives and children, Lu Chongqing also wore a broad smile, feeling pleased and exceptionally fulfilled. Such is life, what more could one ask for? As he was overwhelmed by these strong emotions, Lu Chongqing suddenly felt a tremor from his dantian. The bottleneck of his 6th-level energy refinement cultivation level seemed to loosen at this moment. Lu Chongqing was immediately overjoyed. He realized the opportunity to break through from the energy refinement middle stage to the late stage had arrived. He excused himself from his wives and quickly made his way to his private cultivation chamber to break through to the energy refinement late stage. Lu Chongqing took out a bottle of energy refining powder from the storage bag and poured it into his mouth. Then, clutching 2 spirit stones, he closed his eyes and focused, began circulating the returning origin technique, and aimed to break through to the 7th-level energy refinement. The energy refining powder in his belly made the spiritual energy in his dantian, which was like a stream, seem to boil at this moment, emanating a faint spiritual pressure around his body. Chapter 138. 7th Level of Qi Refinement. Lottery. Lu Chongqing used the returning origin technique to guide the flow of spiritual energy through his dantian and meridians, creating a complete operational circuit that made his aura surge, increasingly exerting a greater spiritual pressure. He didn't know how much time had passed. Boom! Lu Chongqing's body shuddered intensely, and a wave of invisible dust spread out around him. At that moment, he seemed almost ethereal, as if he were about to ascend, with his entire being feeling lighter and more translucent. The 7th-level energy refinement. Achieved. He suppressed the excitement and joy in his heart, slowly calming the agitated spiritual power in his meridians. After a long while, his aura stabilized. The 7th level of Qi refinement. I've finally stepped into the late stages of Qi refinement. Lu Chongqing opened his eyes, which sparkled bright, filled with joy as he spoke. The 7th level of Qi refinement signified his entry into the late phase of the Qi refinement realm. This level of cultivation, even within the entire Lu family, was as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Only Lu Yuanding from his generation and the elders from the older generation of the high-ranking Lu family members possessed such cultivation strength. Among his peers and those of his age, Lu Chongqing knew only of Lu Miaoge. He estimated that there were probably just a few other Lu family disciples. The path of cultivation is myriad. It isn't simply about bitter practice. Different people have different paths. Some dedicate themselves to secluded cultivation. Others go out to experience and fight, breaking through in life and death situations. There are also those who find their breakthrough opportunities amidst the chaos of the mortal world, observing the phenomena of life. And today, I did something similar. In the end, the bottleneck of cultivation boils down to a clear understanding and reaching a new spiritual realm of self. In this moment, Lu Chongqing also came to a realization. Ordinarily, when reading books, he encountered numerous interpretations of the ways of cultivation. But these things, upon reading or listening, seemed mystical and elusive. However, just now, seeing the happy faces of his wives and children, he too experienced an epiphany, a sense of fulfillment, which loosened the bottleneck at the 6th level of energy refinement. Cultivation breakthrough opportunities and bottlenecks, while seeming illusory, indeed, exist in this world. Just like the common phenomena in the cultivation world, such as heart demon oaths, the law of cause and effect, and the concept of destiny. Lu Chongqing didn't dwell on it any longer and closed his eyes again, quietly experiencing the changes following the breakthrough. The spiritual power flowing quietly through his meridians was not only much stronger but also became more lustrous. In the Qi ocean core area, what was once wisps and streams like a creek of spiritual energy had formed into a small lake. This was the Qi Lake, a symbol of the late stages of Qi refinement, the condensation of the spiritual energy into a lake. When one's cultivation reaches the pinnacle of the Qi refinement realm, and the Qi Lake becomes a vast sea, lifting the Tao foundation, one can completely shed the mortal body and establish the Tao foundation to become a foundation-building great cultivator. The 7th level of Qi refinement not only makes the spiritual energy several times more powerful, my mental spirit has also greatly improved. Lu Chongqing felt not only an abundance of energy and lightness in his body, but also his consciousness and thoughts seemed much clearer. This was the state of one's mental spirit. Breaking through from the Qi refinement realm to the foundation establishment stage has 3 major obstacles. The last of these barriers is the transformation of the mental spirit, giving birth to divine sense, which allows for the external projection of one's spirit. This is of great advantage when it comes to cultivation, combat, and other such activities. With my current level of strength, I can also try drawing 2nd-rank talismans. Lu Chongqing thought to himself. While at the 6th level of Qi refinement, as long as the materials for talisman making were available, he could create a supreme talisman. Now that he had broken through the bottleneck and became a 7th level energy refinement cultivator, both his mental spirit and spiritual power had greatly increased, giving him the confidence and at least a 70 to 80% chance of success in drawing a 2nd-rank talisman. But the materials for 2nd-rank talismans are not only expensive, they aren't as readily available as the 1st-grade talisman paper and spiritual ink, and are quite rare. Moreover, if I want to draw 2nd-rank talismans, my current middle-grade magic artifact talisman brush obviously won't do. I would need at least a 1st-grade supreme magic artifact talisman brush. Lu Chongqing shook his head. He was aware that he was missing the most crucial thing to draw 2nd-rank talismans. Money. Without giving it much thought, he stood up, flung his sleeves, and with a gentle smile on his face, said, "Not bad. Breaking through to the 7th level of Qi refinement in less than 7 years. All these years of relentless effort haven't been in vain." Pleased with himself, Lu Chongqing nodded and was about to leave the practice room. However, just as he was about to open the door, Lu Chongqing paused. He double-checked to make sure that the aura of his spiritual power was completely concealed by the magic artifact on his body and the jade pendant gifted by the colored skirt woman. After all, to the outside world, he was still at the 4th level of Qi refinement. Now that he had made a breakthrough, he could at most reveal being at the 5th level of Qi refinement. Showcasing the 7th level would be impossible to explain. Once sure there were no issues, Lu Chongqing finally opened the door and stepped out of the practice room. Outside the small courtyard, his wives were all waiting for him. Earlier, when Lu Chongqing mentioned he felt an epiphany coming and was about to break through, they all came to wait. They hoped to be the first to see their husband after the breakthrough and to share the joy together. Husband! 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 All of the women's gazes converged on Lu Chongqing, calling out in unison. Seeing the scene before him, where the women's eyes were filled with love, admiration, and concern, Lu Chongqing chuckled and said, "Heh, it's only a small step forward in cultivation." Lu Chongqing, with his handsome features, spoke with an air of composure and ease. "Congratulations to my husband for breaking through to the 5th level of Qi refinement." Seeing Lu Chongqing's demeanor and posture, Lu Miaoyun immediately showed a face full of joy and was the first to congratulate Lu Chongqing. "Congratulations to my husband for the breakthrough. Congratulations to my husband for advancing further on the path of immortality. Congratulations, Dad. Congratulations, Daddy. You're amazing." The rest of his wives followed Lu Miaoyun's lead, bowing and instructing their children to offer their congratulations to Lu Chongqing. Seeing this, Lu Chongqing couldn't help but laugh heartily and said, "Good, good, good. Today, having broken through to the 5th level of Qi refinement, we must celebrate properly." Chapter 139. Qi Refinement Level 7. Lottery. That night, the entire Qingzhou mountain was engulfed in darkness and silence. Only in the Qingzhou Valley were the lights in Lu Changsheng's home bright, as he celebrated his breakthrough with his wives and concubines. The next day, Lu Changsheng and Lu Miaoyun left the house to pay a visit to the fourth elder. After all, since he was back, it was only right to pay respects to the esteemed old lady. Just as they arrived at the fourth elder's residence, they happened to run into the second elder leaving. Second grandpa, second elder. Lu Changsheng greeted with a beaming smile and a bow. In his heart, he couldn't help but wonder, could the second elder be a gossip? The very moment he returned to Qingzhou Mountain, he had to come and speak with the fourth elder about what he was up to in the Nine Dragons market. Lucky for him, Lu Changsheng walked the straight path and had nothing to fear from others talking behind his back. Changsheng, Yuner, you've come, the fourth elder said with a loving smile as she saw Lu Changsheng and Lu Miaoyun arrive. After a brief chat, she began to assess Lu Changsheng's talisman-making skills. In terms of talisman making, Lu Changsheng was about the same as his last visit. He had already mastered the Frost Talisman, and then there was another middle-grade talisman, barely a beginner in that area. Given his previous performance and the explanation of his spiritual body, the fourth elder was much more accepting of Lu Changsheng's progress. Indeed, his progress over the past 6 months was nearly the same as in the preceding 4 months. She couldn't help but think, did Lu Changsheng not improve as much this time because he had been physically together with his wife less over these past 6 months? But as his elder, it was not proper to inquire about such matters. It's not as if she could say, Changsheng, if you can handle it physically, more intimacy won't hurt, and he'll explain things to Yuner for you. Not bad, not bad. Changsheng, at this rate, I'm afraid it may only take another year for you to become a superior grade talisman master, the fourth elder said with a joyous and gratified expression. I will certainly work hard, Lu Changsheng replied. He had indeed planned to do so, preparing to demonstrate the skills of a superior grade talisman master in about a year, almost a full year ahead of his original schedule. After all, he had fabricated a spiritual body, so a sped-up rate of progress was somewhat justifiable. Changsheng, you must also diligently pursue your cultivation and not become complacent. Although the 4th level of energy refinement is sufficient to draw a superior grade talisman, it's a bit strenuous, so it would be best if you could break through to the 5th level as soon as possible. The 4th elder glanced at Lu Changsheng's cultivation level and spiritual power. However, she found that his spiritual power was so well concealed that she could not ascertain it at a glance. She did not bother to look further, believing that some treasure must be hiding his spiritual aura. After all, it was quite normal to conceal one's energies while traveling outside. Granny, Changsheng just made a breakthrough to the 5th level of energy refinement yesterday, said Lu Changsheng, who knew that under the cover of the magic artifact and the jade pendant of the lady in the colorful skirt, the 4th elder had not seen his true cultivation level, and he spoke without a change in his expression. The breakthrough from yesterday was also nothing to hide. There was nothing worth concealing. Though having a 9th grade spiritual root and making a breakthrough from the 4th to the 5th level of energy refinement in a year and 8 months was somewhat exaggerated, it could still be barely explained. What, you've broken through to the 5th level of energy refinement? The 4th elder exclaimed in surprise. Indeed, Lu Changsheng was not just a possessor of a 9th grade spiritual root. He had also devoted many hours and energy to talisman making, managing the store, as well as intimate affairs. Therefore, under these circumstances, this rapid advancement to the 5th level of energy refinement was truly astonishing. Yes, Granny. Changsheng knows his talents are lacking, so I have never slacked in my cultivation. Usually, I also drew some talismans to sell to a former good friend, and put some up for sale at the spiritual talisman shop, and with the spirit stones earned, I bought elixir medicines to aid in cultivation. Lu Changsheng spoke up, relating to Hong Yi the affair of selling talismans at the spiritual talisman shop. After all, he had never intended to hide these matters from the Lu family and wasn't afraid of them finding out. Good, good. Knowing that you haven't neglected your cultivation, Grandma is reassured. These matters are trivial. As long as you are clear on them, that's fine. If you have any problems with your cultivation, you can always ask Grandma. And if you need any help, feel free to mention it. The fourth elder said with a face full of gratification. In her heart, she vaguely guessed that Lu Changsheng's spiritual body might also contribute to speeding up his cultivation. However, the speed was not too astonishing, and she didn't inquire further. After all, in the cultivation world, everyone has their secrets. There's no need to be overly curious and insist on asking everything. She immediately began instructing Lu Changsheng in the art of talisman making. Teaching Lu Changsheng to make talismans was also a pleasure for her. After all, mentoring a disciple was very fulfilling and rewarding. Especially thinking about the future, nurturing a second-grade talisman master made her love Lu Changsheng even more. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Lu Changsheng returned to the Nine Dragons market with the second elder. Originally, he planned to bring Lu Lanshu or the sisters Lu Qinger and Lu Zier to the Nine Dragons market. However, the women expressed that the spirit root testing ceremony was just 3 months away and wanted to stay at home with the children. Hearing this, Lu Changsheng did not insist. He immediately took his other 2 wives to the Nine Dragons market. Brother Lu, just how many wives and concubines do you have? After arriving at the Nine Dragons market, Yu Maoqing, seeing Lu Changsheng with 2 women he had never seen before, couldn't help asking. Not many, just 5 wives, 9 concubines, 2 favored beauties and 15 maids. Lu Changsheng said, "Am I really such a damned cheap bastard?" Yu Maoqing, hearing this response, wondered why he had even asked. He slapped his own mouth twice. "Brother Yu, don't be like this, don't. Brother Yu." Lu Changsheng hurriedly held him back. When he got back home, Lu Changsheng shook his head. He felt that if he wanted to remain friends with Yu Maoqing, he needed to talk less about these topics. After that, he counted the spirit stones he had on him. A total of 205 spirit stones. Sigh broke. Lu Changsheng let out a deep sigh. His monthly expenses were substantial. Plus, he had recently purchased gifts for his wives and children, which meant he had spent far too much and saved hardly any money. Looks like I can only go to the White Jade Tower later. As for the matter of the second-grade talismans, that will also have to be put on hold for now. Lu Changsheng, looking at the meager amount of spirit stones, decided to temporarily forego visiting the White Jade Tower and crafting second-grade talismans. Before long, half a month had passed. The last of the 4 maids Lu Changsheng had purchased ended up pregnant. This brought the total number of Lu Changsheng's children to 50. The Lu family is still quite decent, allowing 20 years just to have 50 children. Lu Changsheng couldn't help but sigh when he thought about completing the Lu family's initial request in just over 6 years. Too bad he was no longer the Lu family's son-in-law. Otherwise, with his efficiency, Patriarch Lu Yuanding would certainly have lauded him with great praise before everyone. Another month and more had passed. Lu Changsheng's 36th, 37th, 38th, and 39th children were born. I wonder if there's any reward for the 40th? Lu Changsheng couldn't help but look forward to the birth of the next baby, which was due soon. 9 days later, when the 40th child was born, a system notification rang out. Congratulations, host. For the number of your progeny reaching 40, you have earned 1 chance to draw a prize. Even if he couldn't use them immediately, later on, when establishing a family, he could teach them to his children or others. Lu Changsheng had already thought it through. If he were to establish a cultivation family, it would be just like now, avoiding conflict and strife, making connections, and living harmoniously and profitably. The entire family would rely on mastering various crafts, earning money, and cultivating steadily. Without hesitation, Lu Changsheng used the second-rank puppet skills from the system space. In an instant, a wealth of knowledge entered his mind out of thin air. Puppet Primer, Basic Puppet Compendium, First-Grade Puppet Compendium, Second-Rank Puppet Compendium, Crafting Puppets by Hand, How puppets are made, my affairs with puppets after a while? Lu Changsheng's mind was filled with a flood of knowledge about puppets, identifying materials for making puppets, how to use the skeletons of demon beasts and ferocious beasts to create puppets, puppet formation engraving, spirit mechanisms, and control, etc. Few, worthy of the system. Even though I've experienced it once before, this sensation still feels incredibly profound. Lu Chongqing breathed out deeply and looked at his own hands. Not only was his mind filled with loads of knowledge about puppets, but his hands also felt like they had been crafting, assembling, polishing, and refining puppets for decades. If he had a pile of materials now, he could perform live puppet crafting with his bare hands. However, this puppet skill doesn't seem as good as I thought it would be. After absorbing the second-rank puppet skills, Lu Chongqing slightly frowned. Based on his new understanding of puppet crafting, he realized there were several significant issues with making puppets. It took time. It cost money. Even with second-rank puppet skills and being a second-tier top-level puppet master, working with the right materials, it would still take 2 or 3 days, maybe even longer, to craft an ordinary first-grade low-quality puppet. For a first-grade middle-grade puppet, at least 7 or 8 days, possibly up to a fortnight. And as for first-grade high-quality puppets, even longer, usually starting from a fortnight. With his regular cultivation, talisman making, spending time with his wives and concubines, and child creation, Lu Chongqing clearly knew he did not have enough time or energy to mass-produce puppets. Moreover, the material costs for creating puppets were high. Lu Chongqing made a rough estimate. Just the material costs for an ordinary first-grade low-quality puppet would be around 20 or 30 spirit stones. Although he wasn't sure of the exact price of a low-grade puppet, he vaguely knew that the price of one would not exceed 100 spirit stones. That meant that crafting a puppet, busying himself for 3 or 4 days, would only yield 3 or 4 times the profit. This profitability paled in comparison to talisman making. It was downright embarrassing. No wonder there exists a hierarchy among craftsmen. Formation, alchemy, artifact refining, and talisman making, the mainstream arts, look down on other crafts. Puppetry might be decent within the myriad arts of cultivation, but compared to the relatively effortless and highly profitable talisman making, the difference is immediately apparent. Furthermore, among the mainstream 4 arts of cultivation, talisman making is ranked at the bottom. Lu Chongqing shook his head, reflecting. Suddenly, he felt that these second-rank puppet skills were somewhat superfluous to his current situation. Firstly, this skill was not a means to make money. Chapter 141. Screwing on the assembly line. Earning money from making puppets could never be as easy or quick as earning money from talisman making. Then, the time and material costs of the production are too high. It made him immediately abandon the strategy of the puppet sea battle he had imagined. Even for a first-grade inferior puppet, he couldn't afford many. As for making second-rank puppets, that was even more out of the question. It's not that he couldn't create them, he simply didn't have the money. Lu Chongqing wasn't very clear on the material costs for a second-rank puppet, but his preliminary estimate was at least several thousand spirit stones. This is too hard. Lu Chongqing sighed deeply. It felt like everywhere on the path of cultivation required money. He now needed money to save the unfortunate female cultivators at White Jade Tower. He also needed money to buy a first-grade premium talisman brush, to purchase second-rank talisman materials, and to draw second-rank talismans. Barely having enough money as it was, and in great need of it, where would he find the funds to buy materials to make second-rank puppets? Alas, one person can only do so much. If you try to do everything yourself, it's just too hard. There's simply not enough time and energy. No wonder many artisans choose to join a power. Lu Chongqing shook his head in contemplation. He also understood why many would choose to join a power. Because by joining a power, there were many conveniences. Just like when he was with the Lu family, he also benefited from the family. But the problem was, his second-rank talismans and the second-rank puppets he currently had couldn't be shown. He couldn't quickly convert them into resources. And with his current lack of strength, he didn't dare reveal his second-rank skills. Otherwise, what would he do if he ended up as a tool person drawing talismans for 8 hours a day? Wait a second, puppet making, though difficult, is mainly complex. Not only do you need to refine materials, create parts, craft components, and assemble them, but you also have to engrave spiritual pattern formations onto the puppets, and so on. One person trying to master all of this is of course very hard, but these steps can be divided up and done by different people. Lu Chongqing assimilated the puppet knowledge in his mind. All of a sudden, he felt producing puppets was a bit like the assembly line factory where he had screwed in bolts in his previous life, and an idea occurred to him. If a person only had to master one thing, wouldn't that be much simpler? I could find a group of somewhat talented apprentices and teach them different parts of puppet making. Parts, components, and assembly to different people. Then, I could teach the most central spiritual pattern formation engraving to a trustworthy person. Wouldn't that achieve an assembly line for puppets? As long as the puppets are industrialized on an assembly line, and the quantity goes up, wouldn't making money become simpler? After all, no matter how profitable talisman making is, it's still just one person. How can that compare to the products of an assembly line? Lu Chongqing thought to himself. The more he thought about it, the more feasible this idea seemed to Lu Chongqing. Talisman making had to be done by himself. But with his skills in second-rank puppet making, as a master second-rank puppet maker, he found that puppet making could absolutely be divided up among multiple workers. The difficulty of this art lay in its complexity. You had to create and refine the numerous parts and components of a puppet, assemble them, then engrave the spiritual pattern formations upon the puppet. One even needed to understand mechanical techniques, human biomechanics, physics, mechanical construction, and a whole bunch of other things. But if these parts were divided up and industrialized, allowing different people to work on them, the barriers suddenly lowered. There was a definite hope of creating an assembly line industry. If I can think of this, surely others could too, right? Forget it for now, this is a bit too far-fetched for me. I'll wait until I'm stronger and consider it then. Lu Chongqing shook his head, pushing down the idea that had just come to him. To build a puppet-making industry, he would still need a certain level of strength before he could start to implement it. Currently, with no money and no strength, it's better to stick to making talismans to earn money to survive and grow. Looking at the sky outside, which was almost evening, Lu Chongqing walked out of the spiritual talisman shop. He prepared himself to purchase some materials for making puppets. Despite the high costs, since he had the skills, he had to put them to use and create a couple for fun. If all else failed, they could later serve as toys for his children. Lu Chongqing didn't go to the loose cultivator market to buy materials. This round trip would take too long, and by the time he finished it would be dark. An hour later, Lu Chongqing arrived at the Qingyun Commerce Guild. This was a shop opened by the Qingyun sect itself, with 7 floors, and was extremely luxurious. Inside, elixir medicines, magic artifacts, cultivation techniques, heavenly and earthly treasures, and more were sold, all with guarantees. Lu Chongqing went to the Qingyun Commerce Guild and purchased materials for making a first-grade inferior puppet and a first-grade middle-grade puppet. He also casually bought some spiritual materials needed for practicing the 100 Refinements treasure body technique. Lu Daoist, what kind of talismans are you looking for this time? Lu Chongqing didn't dwell on the topic but asked directly. Do you have any thunder summoning talismans? Golden light barrier talismans? Sweet dew talismans and escape talismans? Xia Long inquired. There are several of those talismans carried by Lu. How many of each do you need, Xia Daoist? Lu Chongqing replied nonchalantly. Do you have 2 or 3 thunder summoning talismans? Xia Long asked. Just so happens I have 3. If you need them, Xia Daoist, I can sell all of them to you, as I just so happen to need to restock next month. Lu Chongqing said. Of course, that was not true. The talismans he sold to Xia Long were usually ones he had drawn for his own protection and carried on himself. He had over 100 superior grade talismans, and about 50 supreme talismans. The reason there were only so many talismans and he didn't draw more was partly because of limited time. Furthermore, aside from personal defense, he had no secure channel for selling them. Material costs were what they were, so it wasn't good to stockpile too many. Then I thank you, Lu Daoist. Aside from the 3 thunder summoning talismans, I would like one of each of the other 3 types of talismans. Xia Long said. Xia Daoist, you're purchasing so many talismans this time. Is the place you're going to particularly dangerous? I also have a thunder talisman on me for personal protection. If you need it, I can sell that to you as well. Lu Chongxing thought that he was currently in need of money, and having dealt with Xiaolong as a neighbor for so long, he felt it was possible to sell the other party 1 or 2 supreme talismans. After all, he did have a thunder talisman given to him by the 4th elder, which made the offer plausible. Daoist Lu actually has a supreme talisman available for sale? I wonder at what price you are selling it. Upon hearing this, Xiaolong's face immediately lit up with joy. This is also for self-defense from my family elders. If Daoist Xia needs it, consider it as me selling next month's supreme talisman from the store in advance. As for the price, it'll be the same as the store's, 220 spirit stones. Lu Chongxing said so. Okay. Then thank you very much, Daoist Lu. Xia Long immediately clasped his hands in thanks. In the 9 Dragons market, supreme talismans were not so easy to buy. Now that he heard there were some available, he naturally wanted to purchase them. Daoist Xia is too courteous. Lu Chongxing took out 7 talismans from his storage bag and then said, that will be a total of 490 spirit stones. Just give me 450 spirit stones. Daoist Xia. He would always give Xia Long a discounted price when trading with him. This was one of the reasons why the other party regularly came to him to purchase talismans. Chapter 143. Dad, can't I cultivate without a spiritual root? _1 After leaving the 9 Dragons market, Lu Chongxing did not ride the iron feather eagle. Instead, he took out a flying artifact he had once acquired from a robber cultivator from his storage bag. Now that he had broken through to the energy refinement late stage, he was also able to maneuver the flying artifact to travel. Of course, Lu Chongxing had no intention of flying back to Qingzhou Mountain on the artifact. That would be unrealistic. He simply thought that since he had disguised himself, he might as well make the disguise convincing. And to experience the flying artifact as well. This flying artifact was shaped like a circular wheel. Lu Chongxing channeled his spiritual power into it and threw it into the air before jumping onto it. With a slight movement of his mental spirit and maintaining it with his spiritual power, the wheel began to fly. The base speed of this flying artifact was not very fast. It was only a bit faster than a spirit steed. But compared to a flying sword artifact, it consumed very little spiritual power. If one wanted to increase speed for escaping or such, the consumption of spiritual power would increase exponentially. After flying about 10 kilometers, Lu Chongxing felt that 1/10 of his spiritual power was depleted. Such a flying artifact consumes quite a lot and is not suitable for long-distance travel. For long-distance flight during the Qi refinement realm, one still needs to rely on flying mounts or flying boats that fly using spirit stones. Lu Chongxing shook his head and said. He then descended from the flying artifact, took out the iron feather eagle from the spiritual pet bag, and mounted it. Flap! Flap! The iron feather eagle spread its wings and soared into the sky, speeding towards Qingzhou Mountain. 2 days later, Qingzhou Mountain. Lu Chongxing, handsome and tall, dressed in a blue silk robe embroidered with bamboo leaves, dismounted from the iron feather eagle. The journey had been very smooth, with no incidents. But now, with a cultivation level in the late stage of Qi refinement, more than 100 superior grade talismans, about 50 supreme talismans, and a talisman treasure, Lu Chongxing also felt a sense of security in his heart. It was not as worrisome as before during the trip. After Lu Chongxing returned home, his wives and children were naturally overjoyed. While chatting with Lu Miaoyun, he also learned that the testing for spiritual roots would begin in 5 days. He also found out that during his last 3 days at home, one of his wives had conceived, meaning that the maid he had impregnated at the 9 Dragons market was carrying his 50th child. Chapter 145. Dad, can't I cultivate without a spiritual root? If I want the item and prefer not to start trouble, then there's only one solution. Lu Chongqing looked indifferently at the youth and the 5 people pursuing him. The 5 people chasing the youth saw this and, even though they knew the youth was drawing disaster toward them, the leader did not hesitate. He directly said, "Third, fourth, go retrieve the Xian in true water." "Yes, big brother." Upon hearing this, the 2 men looked toward Lu Chongqing, maneuvered their flying magic artifacts, and charged straight at the iron feather eagle. Buzz! Lu Chongqing immediately cast a golden light barrier talisman. A layer of golden light spread, enveloping both him and the iron feather eagle. The iron feather eagle couldn't afford any mishaps. Otherwise, there was still a whole day's journey to the 9 Dragons market. Immediately after, in his 2 hands, he held a dozen or so talismans in one and a thick talisman inscribed with a golden brick in the other. It was precisely the golden light brick talisman treasure. The youth in front of him and these 5 were no ordinary people. Therefore, if he were to take action, he had to be decisive and end the battle quickly. Superior grade talismans. Looks like you're quite wealthy, kid? However, we of the co-family 5 Fierce take a fancy to something, and you dare to gather it up. Aren't you afraid you'll have the luck to gather it but no life to enjoy it? Third and fourth charged towards Lu Chongqing with a grim smile on their faces. One was wielding a great saber, and the other a great hammer, both exuding immensely fierce might. A golden light barrier talisman was only a superior grade talisman, and it could probably only withstand 1 or 2 hits. Watching the great saber and hammer coming at him, Lu Chongqing's expression remained indifferent. His robes fluttering without wind, rustling loudly as he threw out the stack of talismans in his hand. Out of nowhere, fire clouds, fire serpents, and wind blades appeared and sped towards the 2 men. "Kid, with just these tricks, you think you can snatch treasures from us? That's simply..." Third and fourth saw the onslaught and remained unfazed, their hands performing a spell to protect themselves with magic artifacts. However, in the next moment, they saw a golden glowing rectangular object in Lu Chongqing's hand shoot up into the air, quickly enlarging and shining brightly. It emitted a majestic aura like mountains, making them feel weighted down as if a great mountain had fallen on them. Their complexions instantly turned pale. "This is a talisman treasure," they both exclaimed in shock and anger. They never expected that the youth they had been chasing was extremely difficult to deal with, and that their group of 5 brothers had been chasing him for half a day. Now they encountered another youth on the road, thinking he would be easy to deal with, but he used a talisman treasure right away. This was outrageous. Perhaps today they hadn't checked the almanac before leaving their home. "Fellow Taoist, please stop. It's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. This Foundation establishment spiritual object will be given to you as a gift." Right. Let's talk. Let's talk." Third and fourth immediately shouted loudly. They couldn't fathom why someone who would use a talisman treasure would be interested in a mere Foundation establishment spiritual object. To create such a scene over a Foundation establishment spiritual object? And moreover, who uses a talisman treasure as an immediate response in a confrontation instead of keeping it in hand as a deterrent? Third and fourth were utterly baffled. They just couldn't understand. It wasn't just them. The youth and the other 3 watching the scene were also stunned and confused. They had never seen anyone act like this before. Too late. Lu Chongqing responded coldly to their words. Once a talisman treasure was used, there was no talking of stopping it. Third, fourth. The tall man on the other side of the dark clouds shouted urgently. With a pinch of a spell, he summoned a blood-colored chain that shot towards the third and fourth brothers like a blood serpent, intending to escape with them in tow. But the golden light brick had already descended like a golden mountain upon them, crashing down heavily. Under its spiritual pressure, the two had no means of resistance. Even the blood-colored chain coming towards them briefly hesitated. Boom! As the golden light brick came smashing down, the two were crushed and sent flying, plummeting from the sky. You killed my third and fourth brothers. Today, I will kill you. The tall man standing on the dark cloud looked shocked and angry as he extended his right hand, placing his middle and index fingers to his lips and biting down, squeezing out a drop of exceptionally thick blood from the wound. Then with a strong flick, a bizarrely shaped flying dagger appeared, radiating blood-red light, shooting towards Lu Changsheng at high speed. Not good. Lu Changsheng's eyes narrowed, realizing this attack was no simple matter. The enemy wanted to take advantage of the gap between talisman treasures to kill him outright. He immediately took out another talisman, a supreme talisman, the Golden Light Bodyguard Charm. At the same time, he summoned the middle-grade magical shield he had obtained from a robber cultivator, which he had reserved for his own use. The earthen yellow shield, like a massive wall, was immensely thick and positioned before him.